On February 9th, 2004, Maura Murray disappeared after crashing her car on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. The scenes she left behind gave us more questions than answers. There were no signs of a struggle, no clear direction of travel. Her scent was tracked for 100 yards and then it vanished, just like she did. She took her phone, wallet, keys, and backpack. But that wasn't the only clue. In the car were her toiletries, printed MapQuest directions, and her schoolwork. Items that told a very different story than the runaway narrative. There were the signs of someone preparing for a short trip, a getaway, not a disappearance. And that's the line that we've followed throughout this series. The idea that someone picked her up, that she wasn't walking into the woods, but stepping into a vehicle. We believe Maura was either betrayed by someone that she knew, a former friend or maybe a love interest, or that she was abducted by a local posing as a good Samaritan. And we believe that Maura is no longer alive. Before we close this chapter, there are two final theories that we need to address. First, the idea of law enforcement involvement. There are witness claims of a police SUV near the crash site and questions about how the early investigation was handled, but no direct evidence has ever surfaced. What we do see, however, is a familiar pattern of systemic breakdowns. No be on the lookout issued, jurisdictional delays, communication gaps. Failure? Absolutely. Conspiracy? That's still unclear. Second, Israel Keys. He has been speculated about in Reddit threads and even in a 2024 podcast episode. But the FBI has ruled him out based on evidence that places him in Utah at the time of Maura's disappearance. It's a chilling theory, but not a supported one. After those, we'll take a step back and reassess everything. We'll recap all 6 major theories that we've examined: accidental exposure, voluntary disappearance, betrayal by someone she knew, abduction by a local, police involvement, and Israel Keys. We'll assess them one by one, assigning likelihoods based on what we know, what law enforcement has said, and what's never been explained. And then we'll turn our attention to another young woman who vanished just weeks later under equally baffling circumstances. Her name, Brianna Maitland. Her case too begins with a stranded car. And like Maura's, it ends in silence. So Angela, how's it going, first of all?
It's going all right. How are you?
I'm doing better. How was work?
It was decent today.
Was it?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Right in the summer mess that we have every summer.
Yeah, but I'm not as much in that mess. I'm in it in the winter.
Yeah, that's true.
I book the mess that shows up.
That's true. Yeah.
So all that crap out there is my fault.
And how are you feeling as we begin this final episode into the Maura Murray arc?
Still confused. Still annoyed.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how this case leaves everybody.
Yeah, confused, annoyed.
Yeah. Well, you ready to do this?
Yep, let's get her done.
All right. So in this episode, we'll confront the theories that we feared most, revisit every possibility that we've explored, and honor Maura with a tribute to who she was beyond the headlines. We'll also begin looking ahead because the mystery of Maura Murray didn't end in the White Mountains. It echoed outward into the lives of other missing women, into the cold trails of other cases. Welcome to Dark Dialogue, the podcast where we unravel the shadows of the human mind and dive deep into the mysteries that haunt small towns and big cities alike. I'm your host, John.
And I'm your host, Angela, and alongside John, we're here to explore the stories that keep you up at night. Tales of mystery, betrayal, and the kind of truth that's stranger than fiction.
In each episode, we dive deep into the cases that haunt us, the mysteries that linger, and the questions that refuse to fade, giving a voice to those left forever voiceless.
So grab your headphones, dim the lights, and join us for a conversation that's as gripping as it is unsettling. This is Dark Dialogue. Let's step into the darkness together.
Maura Murray's story might not have ended in the woods. It might not have ended at the crash site at all. There is a theory, one rooted in both evidence and emotional logic, that Maura set out on a quiet, personal trip, reaching out to someone that she trusted, a friend, a former love interest, someone who knew her past, understood her present, and maybe offered an escape from the mounting pressure that she carried. But instead of support, what she received was betrayal. This theory doesn't involve strangers or random violence. It starts with someone Maura knew, someone she let get close. The evidence in support of this possibility paints a picture of trust, preparation, and vulnerability. So let's begin with the scent tracking dogs that were deployed by the New Hampshire authorities. So we've talked about them on every episode. We're not going to rehash everything. We know at this point that they just stopped about 100 yards away from her crashed car. And it has long been interpreted as an indicator that she got into another vehicle. This is consistent with canine behavior in roadside searches. Scent plumes, what dogs follow, dissipate quickly when someone enters a moving vehicle, especially on a narrow rural road like Route 112. With poor visibility, sparse lighting, and long stretches without homes, it would be easy for a trusted contact to pull up quietly, pick her up without anybody seeing. Supporting that theory is what was missing from the scene: her cell phone, her keys, her wallet, and her backpack. These items weren't recovered from the car or the surrounding area. If Maura had wandered into the woods in a panic or staged her disappearance, some of those items might have been found or discarded, but their total absence suggests that she brought them with her, perhaps into somebody else's vehicle. And then there's the lie. When Butch Atwood, the school bus driver, offered Maura assistance after the crash, she declined and told him that she'd already called AAA. We know that that wasn't true. The likely reason for her lie was not to avoid help altogether, but because she was already expecting it. If Maura had prearranged a meeting with someone, she wouldn't want a stranger interfering.
So the lie to Butch wasn't just about privacy, it was about protecting a plan?
Exactly. And that plan was likely centered around a weekend escape. Maura had printed the MapQuest directions that we talked about to Burlington, Vermont, which was a college town just a few hours northwest. Not New Hampshire. Burlington offered lodging, bars, cafes, and a kind of anonymity a student under pressure might be craving. She emailed her professors, like we said, lying about a death in the family, and we know that that wasn't true. And we also talked about, I think on the previous episode, about how it doesn't make sense for her to do that if she was running away.
Yeah.
You know? And then she withdrew almost all of her money, but not all of it, from her account, and then stopped at a liquor store, which is another thing with me that just doesn't make a damn bit of sense. Like, I'm going to pull all the money I have, which is a whopping $280, to disappear forever. And the first stop I make is the liquor store.
Yeah.
Which just doesn't compute.
That doesn't help you get too far.
No, it doesn't help you get too far at all. And then we went through what she had packed and everything. And, it's like I said, for a girl that's traveling, it wasn't a crazy list of stuff. I didn't think it was just stuff that she took for a weekend getaway. So her packing part,
it feels intentional, like she was just looking for somewhere to stay, not that she planned to tell everyone where she was going.
Right. And the actions weren't reckless. They were measured. Maura wasn't preparing to run for her life. She was packing for a week.
With booze. You don't run for your life with booze.
Exactly. And, she wasn't prepared for a life on the run. She wasn't prepared to disappear forever. She was getting away for the weekend.
Sorry, I just had a visual of of a girl with a box of Franzia under her arm just running.
Right, for like...
And that's just not...
Yeah, telling, her serial killer chasing her, hold on 1 second, I got to stop at the bar first.
Yeah, really?
Or somebody that's in extreme emotional distress that is getting ready to disappear from her entire family for the rest of her life. And she goes to the liquor store.
Do you prefer red or white? I mean,
right.
What goes with serial killing?
It makes no damn sense. It just doesn't fit at all. And why, the other thing that really struck me was, why not get to wherever she's going if she's going to be getting drunk?
And then get the booze? Yeah.
I
don't understand.
Yeah, it seems to me like she was getting, I have really become convinced through research in this case, which we'll go through all this, but I've really become convinced that she was meeting up with somebody.
She just needed a break.
Yeah, but she wasn't going alone.
Right.
She was meeting up with somebody somewhere for a weekend getaway, whether it was a romantic rendezvous, or I think it's more likely that it was a guy than it was a girl, because it was secret.
Yeah.
And I don't know why 2 college-age girls would keep it secret,
Mm-hmm.
And why one of them wouldn't have come forward later and said,
that's true too.
We were going to meet up.
Unless they're both gone.
Well, I don't think her and Brianna Maitland were buddies, and that's the only other one that really fits, so.
That's true. Rain on my parade, John.
So, I think it brings us to, who was she meeting? And the first possibility is a friend from UMass, maybe a fellow nursing student, someone who had seen her overwhelmed and offered some kind of reprieve. Pure relationships can turn complicated fast, especially when support gets misread as intimacy. And in an environment, that's a story.
Or telling me what to do.
That's a story, though, that in true crime, you hear all the time. This dude has a thing for this chick, and he's always kind of there, and they're friends. And she sees him as a friend, flat out. She sees him as her buddy. And men and women just view that differently, And he sees her as a love interest. They're going to spend the rest of their lives together. They finally have an opportunity, and he makes his move, and she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're friends.
Right.
And he's like, oh, hell no.
Mm-hmm.
And all goes, you could just go home and turn on a true crime series.
Yeah.
And I guarantee
I can't have you, no one can.
You're going to stumble across that story. It's not going to take very many episodes to get there, because it happens all the time.
All the time.
And then in an environment with long hours and high emotional burnout, those boundaries blur. They're college kids, they're in nursing programs, and they're spending tons and tons of time together. Study groups and that kind of stuff. It's easy for somebody to catch those feelings. And, that whole situation that I just described, it develops easily, and they're spending time together. They're meeting up, studying, and, meeting each other for drinks or going out for pizza. And
that's all they ever see is each other.
Yeah. And one of them starts to develop feelings, and the other one is just like, they're my friend.
I'm just trying to get through this with my friend. Yeah.
So that's a real possibility in my mind. Again, I think it's a dude. I just don't see this happening with a girl.
So in your opinion, would a dude be less likely to come forward if he didn't have anything to do with it?
No, but in this theory, he does.
Okay.
So what I kind of think might have happened is exactly what I just said. They went off together for a little retreat, and he saw it as more than she did. He made his move, and it didn't go well. And either he killed her in anger, which I think is probably most likely, or an accident happened and she died.
Okay.
So, and then we have another possibility, though, and that is a previous contact, someone that she grew up with, maybe someone that she dated early on in life or something.
But are there any classmate dudes missing?
Oh, I don't think the dude is missing.
Well, I mean, he just never makes a mistake?
Well, I mean, in a situation like that, it would not be that unusual for them to never commit a similar crime again.
No, that's true.
We're not talking about a serial killer necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, oh my God, this got out of hand. I just killed this girl. I didn't mean to kill her.
Crime of passion type thing.
Right. And then he went back to school, pretended like nothing was wrong. And again, looking into true crime cases, you see this all
Probably
the
needs a
time.
lot of therapy right now.
And, I mean, it's amazing the number of killers that are out there for years. And then, I was watching a true crime show the other day about this whole freaking bunch of asshats. And
what are we, 10 minutes in? There they are.
They were like a security team, and they were called in because there was a strike at like some chemical plant or something. And so they were called in to be the security guards, and they were a bunch of shitheads. And at the motel that they were working in, this poor young girl, she was only like 20 or something, was working, and they ended up kidnapping her, raping her all day and all night long, and then killing her and leaving her in the snow. And then it went unsolved for like 34 years or something.
Damn.
And finally, the cold case investigators went back, re-interviewed all these guys, and then finally one broke and like all the dominoes fell. But not a single one of them went out and committed another crime. At least it
or broke for 30 years.
Yeah.
Dang.
And but none of them have a trail of bodies behind them. I'm sure authorities looked.
Yeah. Or looking now.
Yeah. And you see a lot of those when you're looking at like cold cases that are solved years later.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a one-time deal.
Yeah. Because they do dig into those, right? Like if this guy did it this way, are there any unsolved that he could be? They kind of dig, don't they?
I think some do and some don't. I'm afraid a lot of them don't dig as deep as they could. And it's because it's financially motivated. Honestly, They get a grant a lot of the times in these cold cases. They get a grant and they're told, you go pick the cases. We've got this much money. We can retest DNA. It's an awesome deal. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But once they've solved that case, I don't think that they're
able to put forth.
Yeah, I don't think their department's like, okay, great. Now go spend another couple $100,000 and research if he killed anybody in any of the other states he lived in. Because they're like,
man, that would make so much sense to do.
It would. It's just, and on that one, I can't be down on law enforcement.
Oh, I know. I'm not.
Because it's just like,
I'm not trying to bag on
reality. But I think that there are a lot. I mean, Matt, I just stumbled across a serial killer that lived in Wyoming. I was telling you about the 4 cases that I just stumbled across from 74.
How do you stumble across such things?
Look at what I do for a living.
I know.
But he was convicted of raping and murdering 2 young girls in Oklahoma. And although he lived in the same area that 4 people disappeared in a 7-week period matching his victim type, they never really looked into him because he died in 1993. And it's like, those ones do piss me off because their families
still deserve
an answer.
Oh.
But there's one where they have a very viable suspect.
Death doesn't dissolve the need for answers.
It doesn't, but it definitely dissolves the willingness for states and municipalities to devote the funds to prosecute a case. It is rare. It happens, but it is rare that a municipality will spend the money to try somebody that's already dead. And it's sad, but I don't necessarily fault them either, because
I know.
and this is the shitty part about
But
this.
shouldn't that be like a tax write-off or something? I'm not like trying to even be an ass here. And like, should it be so many hours? Just like doctors have to give so many hours. Don't you think legal professionals should have to give so many hours, and it would be a tax deduction to figure this shit out for families that are out there losing their damn minds?
Here's what I think. I think that...
Am I just too passionate right now?
No, I don't. I think that you're right. I don't think that we can fairly ask law enforcement or anything to mandate that they donate their personal time. But what I do think
If they have enough tax break, they might do it.
What I do think is, on those cases like that, we're talking about the 4 girls, and I ain't gonna divulge too much because we're probably gonna have to do an episode on it. But the 4 girls I stumbled across, that 2 of them were found dead in Wyoming. The other 2 have never been seen, but they disappeared within a 7-week period. They think they got the guy. But what pisses me off in those cases is, I mean, it was 1974.
Yeah.
So we're 51 years past it. Why doesn't law enforcement, when you get to a certain point and they're like, we can't devote any more resources to this, why don't they just open it up and say, we know there are all kinds of web sleuths out there.
What can you do?
There's a huge true crime community.
Yeah.
And if you need to go through a vetting process, submit, okay, so, I'm qualified to do this because XYZ, or I'm not a piece of shit and I can prove it if I need.
I live in this state. Where do you need me to go? Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. I mean, if they did that, I'd sign up. I'd go do the background check. They could, polygraph me. They could do whatever they wanted to, but then give us the information, because we're willing to do it for free.
Yeah.
And I get really irritated when law enforcement community refuses to acknowledge the value of citizens in general, but like citizen detectives. Yeah. Granted, you're not going to go become a brain surgeon online.
No.
Anybody can become a detective, and some of them in the true crime community are a whole hell of a lot better detectives than some of them that we're employing to be detectives. Let it out to the community.
Yeah. I think there might be some bill writing in our future.
Maybe.
I'm not even joking.
So we've talked about somebody from UMass being a possibility, a friend, love interest, whatever.
Right. Yeah, let's
bring
us back to the story.
The next theory, obviously, is somebody else from her childhood, somebody that she, maybe a boyfriend that they dated.
Like reconnection?
Yeah. And, sometimes it's not even a reconnection. Sometimes those relationships last as friends. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to throw any shade on Maura, but this is a reality. This stuff happens. And we know that her and Bill were having problems in their relationship.
Yeah.
So it's not that far out of the realm of possibility that she reached out to somebody. And I ain't even saying that it was necessarily romantically or sexually. It could have just been, hey,
friend therapy.
We used to really hang out. I used to really be able to talk to you. You were the one that I could come to with my problems, and I really need to spend some time with you right now.
Yeah, friend therapy.
Yeah. And then another possibility would then be, somebody from like West Point or something like that. A person that Maura had known in that intense male-dominated setting where control and status mattered.
I would hope somebody there, though, would have come forward by now.
You would think, but I'm telling you straight up, there's as many douchebags that go to West Point as there are to UMass or any other college.
I was trying to make the military better.
I mean, I do believe firmly that West Point has extraordinarily high criteria. But I also know that type of an atmosphere can lead to bad panic shit. Like, if that person, I don't know, she turned to get away from him and tripped and fell and hit her head, that person might be more likely to be
My
like,
career's over. I have to cover
I
this.
can't ever let anybody know about this, than somebody that left the trailer park and they're just like, what are you going to do? Take my Chevy? You know?
On blocks.
I mean, I do believe that, I mean, I don't know, like, there is no, like, entry level to being a douchebag. Like, so I think that there is that possibility there.
Say we do a show on that. Levels of douchebaggery.
Oh, man, that'd be a lot of research, and that'd be a long show.
You've already gotten to level 3 with how you're talking about people. It
We'd have
wouldn't
to
be
do
hard.
a whole entire show dedicated to that.
So,
It could go on for years.
do you know how many people would listen to that because they just love you?
I don't know about that at all.
I love hearing asshat and douchebag and all that.
But
I hear it a lot because I am the face because you like to be the mystery.
this is true. I hide.
I hear it a lot that people are like, he is just hilarious and these words. And yes, I hear it a lot. And I report to you.
Well, thank you to our listeners that feel that way.
I do report to him, just so you know.
It's not on purpose. It just kind of comes out that way. But it's easy to imagine someone from that world seeing more as outreach as a chance to maybe finally get with her romantically.
Yeah.
And then jealousy, possessiveness, or a perceived or a real rejection of that authority. I mean, we know those type of guys, and we also know that those sort of careers do draw that type of,
Unfortunately.
type A, I'm the boss, you do as I say kind of personality. And so, I don't know, it's not that difficult to imagine. And then it could have triggered, like I said, either a violent response or it could have been an accident that they just didn't want nobody to know about.
Right. So what kind of motives would that person have then?
So somebody like that, control, entitlement, or rage. When someone feels like they're owed something, like a second chance or a romantic outcome that they've now expected, like we've said, they can lash out when those expectations aren't met.
Right.
And they do. I mean, like I said, we've seen it time and time and time. It happens all the time. And these aren't always calculated acts. Typically, they're not. It's
reaction.
A push turns to panic. A heated argument turns fatal. The betrayal comes not from planning, but from refusing to accept that the relationship is over or that it was never mutual to begin with. Psychologically, Maura had reasons to be on edge. She was facing the academic pressures. I mean, we've talked about it, all the crap that she was going through. And yeah, she was definitely stressed.
Yeah.
But none of her actions suggest that she was unraveling, at least not to me. I know that's been claimed, like she was, spiraling out of control. I don't see a thing in her behavior to suggest that. Matter of fact, I see it quite the opposite. I think that she was behaving calmly.
Normally, for that
age group and in that situation, she was following a plan. And to me, if we go through all the crap we've already talked about, and you say to me, this shows that she was running away, and we talked about it at the beginning of the show, this shows she's running away from her life for the rest of, she's never going to see her family again, she's leaving everything behind, blah, blah, blah. I have to be like, really?
Yeah.
You see that?
I don't think so.
If somebody says she was headed out, she was getting away for the weekend, she didn't want her family to know. Totally understandable. 20-year-old kid. She's wanting to escape for the weekend. I sure as the hell never reported to my parents once I moved out of the house. If I wanted to take off for the weekend, I didn't call them first and say, hey, I'm going to be gone for the weekend. I just went. You're now an adult. This is what you've been waiting 20 years for. So
the only difference is I had a child. So I was like, I would like to get out. Will you take the child? So they knew. My parents knew.
Yes.
But Ron doesn't have that problem.
No. And so it just, but when you say, she was taken off for a weekend, she wanted to get away, she wanted to clear her head. And then when you put all of that shit into context of that story, her email to her professors makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe she wasn't going to get all her homework turned in, or she was going to miss some classes or something like that.
Yeah.
And she needed an excuse. And we've talked about that, I know. But
leaves the door open for a few extra days if you need it.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
and then, you've got her measly little deduction from her bank account of $280. I know that was like all of her money, but it was no money. I mean,
but it was more money then than it is now.
Considerably more, but it was not enough to run off and start a new life together. It was enough to party for a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It was enough to go off and grab some booze and get a motel room or something like that for a weekend and put gas in your car. I mean, you actually used to be able to do that, but even in 2004, it would have been pushing the boundaries of that money.
Yeah.
I mean, because 20 years ago, hotel rooms, you're still looking at $100 a night. You can maybe find one for 60, 70, but I mean,
sketch ones, which could be part of the problem too. But
yeah, but as all I'm saying is, that $280 probably would have got her through a weekend, but it would have been pretty well exhausted by that point.
But if she was meeting someone who is also bringing a chunk with them,
right?
That's the thing right there.
Yeah.
This isn't anywhere near Norman Bates, correct?
I don't think so.
Just wanted to see if I could still make you laugh. All right, let's go.
Did you ever watch that show?
I did.
Did you watch it all?
Which one did you tell me to watch?
Bates Motel.
Oh, no, I loved that one. I'd already watched that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a freaking good one. I can't remember where they were at, though. I don't know if
it's somewhere back east, I think.
Yeah. And then, what she packed, we've talked about that. None of that to me screams, I'm running away and leaving for the rest of my life. I mean, frankly, if like all of her personal items, and I mean that shit that you're never going to see any member of your family again, you're taking every picture of them.
Yeah.
You're taking every sentimental item.
At least the favorite, yeah.
You're probably going to leave the shampoo in the dorm room because you're going to take all the stuff that really matters to you.
Yeah, stuff that can't be replaced at CVS on the way.
Absolutely. And she didn't do that. She took her shampoo or toothbrush, shit that you're going to need for a weekend.
So if she wasn't running or spiraling out of control, then what made her so vulnerable?
That control itself. Maura's independence and composure may have made her feel strong enough to trust someone. But in reaching out and without telling family, without sharing details, she created a window of exposure. She put herself in a situation where if the person she met had a hidden agenda, no one would know. And I think that's exactly what happened. But again, it's not her fault because we all have those people. Hopefully they're not killers, but we all have those people in our lives that we're just like I would never have a second thought about taking off and going somewhere with you. Like I trust you.
Same.
And so we all have those people in our lives, and it's unfortunate, but I've known a couple killers in my life. And when I found out that they were killers, I was blown away. Well, the one that shot me, that one probably fits the killers.
Easier to believe.
Yeah, that one was a little easier to believe. But the second one was really hard to believe. I never would have seen that coming.
And if you guys want us to tell that story, you have to ask John very, very nicely.
Very, very nicely. But we have those people in our lives. And the fact of the matter is you don't always know somebody's dark side.
No, you're an electrician. I'm more scared of you now.
I know. I tell you.
She just looked at me with such a straight face. I know.
But I'm
okay.
It's not that unusual that you, in my opinion, that you trust this person. So why am I going to reach out to my family? I'm going to be with my friend.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So
So how could Maura's trust blind her to this danger?
Well, because danger doesn't always look like the stranger on the side of the road.
That almost rhymed.
Yeah, did you like that?
I did.
Sometimes it looks like honestly, more times than not, as sad as it is to say, it looks like somebody familiar. We know that. Mm-hmm. That is why if a woman disappears, they look at the husband, boyfriend first. If a man dies or something happens to a guy, he disappears, they look at the wife, girlfriend first, because they're the ones that are most likely to hurt you.
Yeah.
As sad as it is. So, like we said, someone you used to date, someone that remembers your old locker combination in high school, and someone who listens just enough to make you feel safe. And, these stories are so common. It happens all the time. The lack of communication records makes this a hell of a lot harder to prove. Her phone went silent. It was likely powered off. If any messages or calls arranged the meeting, they disappeared with the device. And again, we're in 2004. And while we already talked about how different money was in 2004, cell phones, and we did cover that in an episode, how different cell phone technology was. But, now it would be very difficult to arrange a meeting with somebody and not leave any trail.
Right.
In 2004, it wasn't difficult at all. And cell phones weren't relied on in 2004. Mm-hmm. I had one, I think, by 2004, but
I think I did too.
Yeah, because I think I first started really carrying a cell phone around 2002-ish.
Yeah.
Same. And it was like a Motorola, I can't say Motorola, Motorola Razor. But
I think it was the 9/11 scare. Everybody was like, I need to know where my family is and I need to be able to get out and not trust a landline. So cell phones became a lot more prevalent after that.
Well, the technology really didn't exist before that.
Well, I know. But when it started existing, because it's existed, car phones and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, but which I believe was a Tuesday, because it always is.
Yeah, it probably was a Tuesday.
But they became, to the people who build them, more important to build them in a more attainable amount.
I think so. And I think
they knew people were going to be like, people are going to want to be able to control when they and how they contact people.
And I think there was a lot of things going on about that same time. That was the time of the BlackBerry, which, do you remember the BlackBerry?
Yes.
And then I think cell phone providers just did the natural thing. They said, okay, there's these BlackBerries or PDAs. Yeah. BlackBerry was like the big one, but PDAs. And all these people are buying these PDAs and they're paying pretty damn good money for them.
Yeah. Why aren't we on this boat?
So what if we made a phone that was a PDA? And that was kind of the first where it started, where you could email from cell phones and stuff. But I don't think in 2004 you could. I don't think you could email in cell phones. Because it was T9 texting.
Yeah, texting.
You could send pictures. I think you could maybe, I don't know, could you do video? I don't remember. It's not important, but the point is now it would be very difficult because it is all any of us have is a cell phone.
Yeah.
And so if you're in contact with somebody, it's at a cell phone. In 2004, you could have walked right next door and used the payphone.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could have walked right out on the street and used a payphone because they were freaking everywhere. And so if you called somebody on a payphone, there really was no record. I mean, they could see that it came from that number. They could trace the number. They probably couldn't prove who made the call.
Yeah, because there weren't
surveillance.
I was going to say cameras weren't a thing.
No,
everywhere like they are now too.
And Julie, Maura's sister, has never believed that Maura walked away. Neither has her father. The family has always maintained that Maura met with foul play. And this theory that we're talking about provides a compelling mechanism for that. A hidden meetup, a trusted person, some kind of emotional rupture, and a panicked cover-up.
Well, why would someone close to her stay so silent for all these years?
Because silence is safety. If no one knows that you were there, if no one asks the right questions, you can disappear back into your life. And the further that time stretches on, the more terrifying the consequences become. Coming forward now would mean losing everything, even if it was an accident.
Because you hid it for so long.
Exactly. I mean, if she fell and hit her head and you call the cops and get them there right away and you're like, oh my God, this just happened. Even if you had bad intentions, it would be, unless things went way far. But if, you initially just tried to make a move on her and she like turned to leave and banged her head or something, you could easily just say it was just a total accident and probably walk away. As soon as you decide to move the body and hide it, and well, now you're screwed.
Yeah.
And
because why are you hiding it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just the sheer act of hiding it is a crime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, in the end, I think that the evidence aligns with the idea that Maura left UMass for a temporary break. She packed, she planned, she trusted someone to meet her on that road. And I don't necessarily, this is one place where James Renner, I think, is really on to something. And that is the whole tandem driver theory.
Okay.
That there was another car traveling with her. I think it's likely. Or that there was two vehicles heading to the same place that were going to be taking the route. And she knew they were going to be coming along shortly. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. I think a lot of his theories
a lot of
are
sense.
Nonsense, but that one, I mean, when you really get down to it and say, why did she lie about yeah, you could say she was afraid of a DUI, but her freaking car is there.
Mm-hmm.
They're
It
going to
be tied back. Yeah.
It's not like she's 3 blocks from her dorm room and she can run home and say, gosh, no, officer, I've been here all night. Somebody must have stolen. I mean, she's freaking miles away.
Yeah.
She is not getting home. She doesn't know anybody there. Where in the hell she's going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that she just ran off into the woods and just got abducted by aliens. I mean, we've covered a lot of this stuff, and I've really tried to be unbiased and just tell the facts, tell each theory. But this is the last episode, so you're going to hear what I think. And I think that
it's laying it all out.
I think that no matter where you land, you've got to be a little crazy to think that she didn't get into a car.
There's no way.
If you think that she is in the woods somewhere out there, I think.
And those dogs just suddenly don't smell it. It's just whatever.
For 20 years.
Yeah.
Because there was cadaver dog searches up there not all that long ago, within the last few years. And they still come up with nothing. So the idea that there is a body, and we talked about it in the episode where we talked about death by exposure. I mean, we're not talking about somebody that disappeared in the wilderness in Wyoming. That's understandable.
Yeah.
They could lay up there and never be found. Matter of fact, I was just looking today at a case in Wyoming, a woman by the name of Olga, who disappeared 91 years ago up near Topeti, up out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Why does that sound familiar?
I don't know, because I sure don't remember that case. That was a long damn time ago. Her body's almost certainly up in those woods somewhere, and maybe one day somebody will see it, but I mean, it's been 91 years. But I mean, for those of you that aren't from Wyoming and you can't envision it, like the remoteness of the forest areas in Wyoming, I mean, you could literally, like, I'm pretty sure that the most remote place in the entire lower 48 is the thoroughfare up near Yellowstone Park. I think that's the farthest away from people that you can get in the lower 48. Alaska has this beat, but in the lower 48, you can't get any farther away. I mean, we are remote.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, something happens up there, you may never be seen again.
Yeah. In my job, sometimes people call and ask us if we have electricity. Still.
Oh, I know.
In 2025.
Quick funny story. And I know that we're kind of veering from our normal format a little bit on this episode, but it is what it is. But yeah, I went to school with a kid that had got shot in the throat with a BB gun. I think it was a BB gun. And anyway, they had to cut him from ear to ear in order to remove it. And we were talking to some kids from the city. I don't remember. And they're like, "Do you guys still have Indians out there?" And Billy lifted his head and he said, "You damn right we did." They think that we ride horses to school, and
some do.
A lot of people don't even think we exist. There's a huge movement out there that Wyoming is made up.
Wyoming doesn't exist.
Yep.
And I like that.
Yeah, I want to keep that.
It makes us cryptids, and I love it.
Right.
So anyway, we're getting into a whole new episode here.
Yes, we are.
So the friend theory explains that exit, but adds tragedy to it.
It does, because it replaces the mystery with betrayal. Not a vanishing act, but a fatal encounter. Maura's trust in a friend points to one fate. A local's actions loom as another. So the second, and I think equally plausible, I don't know about equally, but another very plausible theory is it was a local. I mean, this is a quiet rural route in New Hampshire. We've talked about it several times. The kind of quiet that swallows sound, masks movement, and erases evidence. And you know, if you live in the warm climate, you probably don't have a clue what we're talking about. But if you live where it's cold and
where the air hurts your face.
Yeah, it was a cold night up there.
Yeah.
And when you're out, especially at night, in that cold, it is the quietest that you ever experience outdoors, ever. I mean, in the summertime, you've got the birds chirping, you've got movement all the time, doesn't matter, it's all night long. In the wintertime, in that cold, everything gets someplace warm.
Is better down warm.
Stops moving. And it is the quietest, most remote, which I love it. I think it's kind of funny that Damien Eccles from West Memphis 3, he said growing up as a kid, that was his favorite time, was in the night when it was cold, because same thing. It's like, it's your world then.
Right.
Nobody's out bothering you. It's your world.
See, I can't keep my brain from inventing noises.
Oh, really?
So then I'm like, what was that? All right, what was that? And nothing is nothing, but my brain is inventing them.
Oh, yeah.
It's the anxiety.
Yeah. So, we talked about it, and on that night that she disappeared, that silence became a shield for whoever crossed her path in the minutes after her car struck that snowbank. And this time, we're not looking at someone that she trusted. We're looking at the possibility of a stranger, a local predator, someone who saw an opportunity and acted on it. So let's start with the evidence that fuels that theory. We've got Faith Westman's call at 7:27. And we've ran through the timeline 100,000 times. We're not going to do it again, but we know that we're left with a very short window. I mean, if you're technical, maybe as much as 15 minutes. I think if you're a realist, you got to admit that it was under 10 and probably more like 5. And
very, very, very most 19.
Right.
Because we've thrown that out there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you just look if you just look at the exact evidence that we
numbers,
yeah, it's 19 minutes.
Yeah.
If you look really close at all the witness statements and use just a little bit of common sense, you can weed that down a lot. And in that time, we know that she disappeared and left nothing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, she left a scent trail that went 100 yards. She left no signs of a struggle. She left nothing else. And so...
no breadcrumbs if something bad was happening.
No.
Like dropping, I mean, figurative breadcrumbs, but still.
Right. And, you know, and like we said, even when we were discussing the last one, everything that I see in this case points to the fact that she got into a car. She walked 100 yards. Why she walked that 100 yards, we may never know, but she walked 100 yards and then she got into a car. And it's a point worth emphasizing that scent tracking dogs don't alert to dead bodies. They don't indicate that there's a dead body there.
It's an entirely different dog.
Totally different dog. They're trained completely different. And these were scent tracking dogs. They're following a live scent. You know, so scent tracking dogs can't be brought in 2 months after something happened and track it. Cadaver dogs can be brought in years after, and they'll still find a dead body.
I just learned the other day, hundreds of years later, if there's a body there, they can find it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
and the crazy
kudos to dogs, man.
And the crazy part is a human body. Like, they won't go find a dead deer.
Yeah.
They're looking for human remains, and they can tell it's nuts. But, you know,
you do not deserve dogs.
They're pretty freaking incredible, I gotta admit. But, you know, I think that's a very important point is, and they're so reliable. I mean, they really are. And if you've ever been on a search where there's like scent dogs, I'm not saying scent dogs don't lose trails, because of course they do. Things happen. But, you know, I mean, if they're heavy on a trail, and all indications are that these dogs were hard on a trail, so they're locked in, you know, when they're looking, they're like making circles out there. They're looking for the scent, and then, man, they park it.
Yeah.
They're on it. And all indications were that these dogs were on her trail.
Yeah.
It was a good scent. And then it disappeared.
Yeah.
She had to get in a car.
And they look at you just as confused, like, well, I was doing my job, and all of a sudden.
And it's crazy when it happens, because, you know, sometimes they'll like run around and try to pick up the trail or whatever, and then they just lay down. And they're like, I've done my job.
This is the last place.
This is it. It doesn't go any further.
And,
you know, if there's a difference, because I've been with dogs that have lost a scent and then picked it back up again, you know, and they're like doing the circles there, because I think they're still getting something, but they just can't get a line on it.
And if they sit still, it might help them gather their bearings.
Well, when they lay down, it's like, we're done. There's nothing else to find. And if there is like a hint of it, they're running around to pick it back up. It's like they can get the scent, but they can't quite tell where it's coming from. And so they're trying to get it a little bit stronger so they can dial in on it again.
Yeah.
And then, but if they don't do that and they just like lay down, like, you know, there is no more trail to follow. It's done.
Yeah.
Whatever happened. There
right here
left to follow.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here. And then, you know, you've got the other stuff. You've got her missing phone, wallet, keys. We've talked about all that. We have no sign of a struggle at the car. We have no broken glass. We know that she made calls to the condo rental outfit. We don't know exactly why, but we can pretty well guess. She was planning a retreat, which to me is another big indication that she is not planning to disappear for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Because she left the trail to follow that she lined up, that she was calling for condo rent. Why would you do that if you're planning to escape? You might call ahead, but you're going to do it from a payphone or a way that it can't be traced. So it like we've talked about, just none of her stuff points to a woman that's fleeing in the woods or planning any kind of permanent disappearance. She was leaving for the weekend. Her purpose is clear. To me, it's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And they suggest one outcome. A local's predation does remain a very haunting possibility.
So what about the type of person who could have taken advantage of that window, and what kind of local predator are we talking about?
So in this theory, we aren't imagining some masked man lurking in the forest.
I am. I don't know about you.
We're talking about somebody that has a job and that gave them access to the road that night. It could have been a plow driver. It could have been a tow truck operator. It could have been somebody that was just driving home from work. You know, this wasn't somebody that was strolling the area randomly.
Yeah.
It was someone that had a reason to be there on that road, and they could convincingly offer help. You know, I mean, you think about it. If it was like a plow driver or somebody like that, maybe they had on a reflective jacket, a flashlight. They had a casual demeanor. It was just a local guy. And, you know, one profile paints a plow driver finishing a late night shift. Another, maybe a tow truck operator who arrived before the police, or again, maybe somebody that was just driving home from work. And we know that this kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Opportunity. They're like, oh, I've kind of always wanted to do something, and here's my opportunity. Let's do it.
Or they didn't even think about it. They literally did stop to offer her help. They were just a douchebag. And once they had her in their car, then they were like, oh, now's my chance. You're never getting away from me.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take a serial killer.
Yeah.
It takes one moment.
So how could someone like that act so quickly? And wouldn't Maura have been hesitant to get into a stranger's vehicle?
So that's kind of the problem that I have with this theory. You know, the theory is that she didn't want to get a DUI. That's the prevalent theory out there, that she didn't want to get a DUI, or she didn't want to get in trouble because she'd wrecked her car or something like that. And, you know, sure, the car was immobile. She had no working phone. I can't explain why she denied help from Atwood unless she just got a bad vibe from him. Like, I don't know. Have you seen interviews with the guy or pictures or anything? So he was a big, early, I don't know that I would call him creepy. He looks a bit like Santa Claus. But he's a big, burly guy with long white hair and a long white beard and mustache. And I don't know, there is just that creepy vibe thing. I think women have it more than men. It's like women have that sixth sense. You can just pick up, you know, when somebody's just off and just wrong. So maybe she just didn't trust him.
Does look like Santa.
I told you.
But he kind of looks like the Santa you would get if you've done something wrong.
Right.
Like, not the Santa that's bringing you, he's the Santa that's bringing you coal. I get it then. Yeah, maybe it was a little.
And she was just like, I don't feel comfortable with this guy. I can understand it. You know, she's a petite young girl, and he is, I mean, he really could be described as a creepy old man. Whether he was or not, I'm not saying he was a creepy old man.
Yeah.
But it could have been perceived that way.
Unfortunately, looks are deceiving, and that's what you get.
Right.
But I could see feeling a little leery if I was by myself, being like, you just...
I've already called AAA.
Yep.
I got taken care of.
My dad's on the way. Somebody is on the way.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, so we know that she was out there. She was vulnerable. Again, I can't explain exactly why she didn't take the ride from Atwood, but it is possible that somebody else came along that didn't creep her out and offered her a ride. They don't necessarily need charm. They just need confidence and opportunity. They need a woman stranded on the side of a dark, snow-covered road with limited choices and mounting stress.
So what makes this theory stand out from the others then?
So this one does explain the abrupt disappearance and no physical trace.
Okay.
There's no confirmed witnesses after Atwood. No one saw her walking. No items were found discarded along the road. No phone pings. No signs of a struggle. Which is huge.
Right.
Because I think that we can say with a certain degree of certainty that nobody grabbed her and like threw her into a vehicle. There was enough witnesses in pretty close proximity that had she started screaming, she probably would have been heard. And so, and anybody that was in the area would have recognized that fact. So if they perceived that they were going to have to do that, they probably wouldn't have tried. But the local perpetrator theory does fit the timeline. It fits the silence and it fits the terrain. And it does account for the rapid vanishing and the lasting void of evidence, because it addresses the likelihood that someone with knowledge of the area, no known link to Maura, could have operated with impunity. So, Maura's phone went silent, so it was likely powered off, and a smart predator would have taken it and shut it down and disposed of it. They wouldn't have left it.
No.
And then same with the keys in the backpack. That's kind of textbook in abduction cases. Eliminate all traceable items.
But how could local predators hide evidence so efficiently? Wouldn't someone have noticed something over the years? Something should have surfaced.
I agree 100%. I do think that a lot of this does come down to the shitty investigative work that was done early on in this case. There was no door-to-door canvassing, which I've already said should have been done just to locate the victim of a car wreck. And again, this happened in 2004. So we didn't have all the surveillance crap that we have now. I mean, if this happened, I can't say for sure, but my guess is if this happened today, one or multiple of those homes would be talking about their security cameras, their Ring doorbells. They would have video of something. Yeah. Even if they didn't capture Maura walking away from her car,
all the vehicles that drove that road.
Yep, this many vehicles passed my house during that period. But in 2004, that shit did not exist. Mm-hmm. And then think about it: if the dude lived alone and relatively close by,
just took her to his place.
Yeah, and if police would have canvassed, then maybe they would have found somebody that had fingernail scratches on their face or acting shady or was digging a hole on their property just out of the clear blue sky. I mean, this goes on and on of what they could have found, but they didn't do a good investigation early on, especially. And so it does make sense that somebody could have picked her up, murdered her, buried them on their property. And, when you talk about like the phone, the keys, the backpack, we're talking about a guy in Wyoming that buried somebody's freaking car.
Yeah.
On their property. So the idea that you would have had a problem burying a backpack, a cell phone, and some keys or whatever. I mean, very easy.
Yeah. All inside each other, in fact.
Exactly. Right.
So could this have been someone who committed a similar crime before or even after?
Possibly, but not necessarily, because again, just like the other theory, this could have been like a crime of opportunity that they never repeated.
Right.
And
Got out of their system.
yeah. And we know that serial killers exist. They're serial offenders of all kinds. But the vast majority of murders, especially, are not committed by serial killers. And, especially in the 2000s. I mean, the vast majority has never been committed by serial killers. But, we know that the peak for serial killing, not necessarily serial crime, but serial killing was 70s and 80s. So it was seriously waning by this period of time. Now it's exceptionally rare. It's scary as hell and it's intriguing.
And we'd like to keep it rare, so
yes.
No surges. We're done.
But the scarier thing to think about is you're way more likely to die by somebody that you know.
I know.
And I think that is another reason why serial killers are pointed to as often as they are, is because people don't want to realize that fact. And that fact is the chances of you coming across a serial killer are somewhere between 0 and, I don't know, less than 1%. But, the chances of stumbling across somebody that you know that has bad intentions, it's frighteningly common. There are theories about other missing women in the region, and some speculate about a pattern, but nothing has ever tied another case definitively to Maura's. And that doesn't rule it out. It just means that the data is scarce. Let's also remember that law enforcement has not named any suspects fitting this profile. There's been no arrest, no grand jury indictment, no press release about a person of interest who matches. That absence is both frustrating and telling. But let's consider the counter arguments, if I haven't already talked about them. Some say that there would definitely be signs. This is kind of the point that you were making. If she was abducted by a local, there would have been signs. A witness, a tip, a pattern. But the original narrative was that she walked away for days and even weeks.
Yeah.
And the investigation definitely headed that direction. So it wasn't like police closed down the roads and talked to every driver that was passing and said, hey, on this night, did you see X, Y, Z? Didn't happen.
No.
They never said there's a possibility that the girl was abducted during this time. I mean, that seriously raises awareness. And when you hear, the day after you drive home from work, let's say you drive home from work tonight, and tomorrow morning, the cops come and say, we know you drove past this location last night. Did you see anything? And even at that point, you might originally be like, no, I didn't see anything. And then you might be like, oh, you know what? I did see a gray pickup pulled off the side of the road. Now add 3 months to that.
Yeah.
And they say, did it? And you're going to be like, I don't freaking know. I have no clue if I saw anything.
Can't tell you what I had for breakfast last week.
And most people are going to be that way.
Yeah.
Like, did you see anything odd? Well, if you see somebody grabbing a girl and throwing them in the back of a van, you're probably going to remember that. You're probably going to call the cops and turn.
We would hope.
But if it's like a vehicle that's off the side of the road, or a girl getting into a vehicle, I mean, wouldn't remember. I see shit like that every day. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
You're driving along and you see somebody riding a bike down the road. Somebody asks you tomorrow, did you see somebody on a bike? Oh yeah, I did, as a matter of fact. And you might even be able to give a description. If they asked me 3 weeks or a month from now, I could have. I don't know.
I've only seen 3 bikes since then.
Exactly.
What took you so long to get here? Yeah.
And then others say that no one with that kind of a dark secret could keep quiet for 20 years, but we know that's bullshit because it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And then we have Maura's family, who has consistently rejected the idea that Maura ran away. They've said something bad happened. They said something violent happened. They have come to understand that she's probably not with us anymore. I mean, that's a sad realization for a family to come to, but after 20 years, you kind of come to that realization. And they've never commented directly that a local predator was likely involved, but their belief in foul play does align with the possibility that Maura encountered somebody dangerous that night.
So if we assume this theory is true, what does that mean for the case going forward? I feel like I'm interviewing you and I kind of like it.
So it means that someone may still be out there that knows exactly what happened. And I don't know. It's tough as hell with nothing. You know, if we had DNA evidence, if we had something, there is a hope, at least, that you could identify who this person is. And, you know, the last thing that I ever want to do is steal hope from a family or something like that. But the fact of the matter is we have no evidence in this case. We have nothing. Unless somebody came forward or the possibility that they committed a similar crime or somehow drew police's suspicion, maybe they could, you know, do a lie detector test or something and then develop them as a suspect. Maybe get enough evidence for a search warrant. And if they could find her body.
See, that's what I was just about to say is I don't look at it as stealing hope from the family, but shifting the hope.
Right.
To something. I mean, at least there's still, I hate the word closure, but something to hold on to if you shift that hope.
Right.
So.
And, you know, the sad reality is, and again, I've said this multiple times, but in doing as much research into these cold cases as I've done very recently, when you read about a case that has no DNA, you come to realize pretty quickly the chances of ever being able to solve it are somewhere near zero, as sad as it is. And, you know, I'm not saying cold cases necessarily from 2004 because we know there's breaks. I'm talking about the cases I'm looking at from the 60s and the 70s. And we know that if there is viable DNA, like we know in Tammy Terrell's case, and if you don't know who that is, start listening to Rocky Mountain Reckoning. But in Tammy Terrell's case, we know there's suspect DNA.
Yeah.
We also know that technology isn't quite there yet to be able to process it and get a profile. But we know, or at least I know, one day we are going to know who killed her. He's probably long dead. There's probably no justice in this world for him. But one day her case will be solved. The one that I'm researching right now, we don't even have her body. She's gone. She just disappeared. She's very much like Maura. What do you have to work with in these cases?
Yeah.
You know, without that DNA, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe in 50 years, something's going to come along as big as DNA was. And we're going to be like, oh, now we can see your thoughts. So now, but until that day comes, I mean, the sad reality is this is a very difficult case to solve unless there's a body found, in which case everything could break open. And if Maura's case is ever solved, that's how it will be solved. I believe they will find her body and then that body will lead them.
Do you want to go to New England?
The killer. Maybe. There is a fine line between negligence and conspiracy. In the case of Maura Murray, that line is blurred by silence, by gaps in official logs, and a community that's still haunted by what might have happened the night she vanished. I mean, these poor people, This is creepy as shit, man. A girl disappears from the front of your house. You see a car wreck and you're calling the cops and you're watching this thing transpire, and then she's gone and you never, I mean, my doors are locked permanently for the rest of my freaking life because I don't know. I know that somebody bad was
swooped in like an eagle
and was 50 yards from my front freaking door. I know that. So these people have got to be petrified.
They might be moving.
Yeah, I mean, it's creepy to think about. Of all the theories surrounding Maura's disappearance, few inspire as much controversy as the idea that a law enforcement officer, either through misconduct, abuse of power, or a subsequent cover-up, played some kind of a direct role in her fate. So this is not about villainizing every officer who ever wore a badge. I mean, I've been very clear how I feel about cops. My son's one, so I should like them. But we also got to be honest, and it is about confronting the uncomfortable. And that is that someone in uniform may have taken advantage of Maura's vulnerability. And then the system may have protected them, and it didn't even have to be intentional.
Right.
So let's start with the facts around that theory. And that is, we have the whole timeline and that short window.
Which seems to be getting shorter and shorter every time we talk about it.
It's short window.
Yeah.
And that one, it doesn't leave a lot of time for a local perpetrator. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it doesn't leave a ton of time for it.
So being that short, what do we know about that gap?
Almost nothing, and that's part of the problem. That's the window where the law enforcement theory is born. One of the most persistent elements of this theory stems from a later claim by Karen McNamara, who was a nearby resident, and she stated that she saw a police SUV identified as number 001 at the crash scene before the officially logged response.
Okay.
And McNamara described the vehicle as being parked nose to nose with Maura's car and said it was idling with its lights off. But here's where alarm bells start to ring. There's no official record of SUV 001 being at the scene during that time frame. The logs place only Sergeant Cecil Smith, who typically drove a cruiser, not an SUV. And online speculation has suggested that there's vehicle discrepancies. I mean, the whole thing, it seems weird as shit to me, honestly. So I've been around law enforcement, my whole life. I think we all have. Mm-hmm. I've worked with law enforcement. I've had friends that are involved in law enforcement. I've known tons of cops on a personal level throughout my life. They're all issued their cruisers. Maybe that doesn't happen everywhere, but I know it happens every place I've lived because I've had neighbors who I didn't know personally, but I've had neighbors who were cops and they brought their cruisers home every night.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very commonplace. This one's weird as shit to me that we don't have a record, an absolute record. Not Cecil Smith later said, oh, it was actually me in 001 that night. That we don't have an official record that said, how is that even possible?
Right.
I mean, we are talking about 2004. Granted, it was 21 years ago, but we are not talking about 1929. This is not the Andy Griffith Show. How is it freaking...
You've been waiting to use that line.
How is it not possible that we don't know exactly who was in what freaking vehicle on that night? It's absolutely unacceptable is what it is. And I do think that it leads to this theory, even if there's nothing behind it, even if, everything went down exactly like it did, the fact that the police department can immediately come out and say, actually, Officer Smith was in 001 because his cruiser, I'm just making shit up,
I know.
but because his cruiser had to be taken in for service. And so because of that, he
was in a loaner cruiser.
Or they say, because every vehicle in that, there's only like 4 officers in the police force, but every one of them is in a cruiser, and the only SUV, from what I understand, is this SUV. And so if they said, we knew it was going to be snowing that night, Officer Smith was the one on patrol.
4-wheel drive.
And so we put that, during the winter months, we put our patrol officer in that SUV, 001, because they probably don't have more than one on duty at night. So, I mean, that would have been logical, but that's not what they said.
Right.
And so it's weird as shit. And I think it leads to this.
So has anyone been able to verify this sighting or even rule it out?
No, it remains totally.
I'm terrified to ask you questions.
The department has never confirmed or denied whether SUV 001 was on the road at that time. In fact, no one has been able to independently confirm which specific Sergeant Smith was driving that night. And I mean, there's all kinds of weird shit about this police force, and I'm not calling them crooked. It's just odd stuff. And then add to that the fact that there was no BOLO issued for Maura, and which I find, and again, I'm just repeating myself, but I find it extraordinarily irresponsible, if nothing else, that you have a possible crash victim wandering around in freezing temperatures with a possible head wound, and you don't
concussion and shock. Yeah.
It blows.
You don't treat her as an endangered person we need to find.
Yeah, you just immediately make the decision that she's running away. And keep in mind, a lot of the stuff that we know retroactively. So like the whole runaway theory bullshit, the email to her professors are packed up because she packed up a lot of the stuff in her dorm room and stuff like that.
Right.
But the cops didn't know that shit that night. They didn't have that information. They didn't even know who the hell she was.
Yeah.
This was not a local to their city. She was an absolute freaking stranger. So,
and I hate to say it, but that should have given them more reason to look, because it's not a local.
Exactly.
Like, why is this random, non-specific to our area vehicle crashed and abandoned?
Yeah, I mean, I think responsible, at the very least, they should have canvassed homes for at least a mile in each direction. They should have immediately searched. And, they did bring out some search dogs and do a little cursory type bullshit, but they should have sent cruisers to local motels. They should have checked with local hospitals. I mean, this is shit that a podcaster's coming up with. I mean, it is not difficult to think of this shit. And the fact that they did nothing, I think even if it wasn't intentional, it really does fuel this theory, because I think everybody is like me. They're like, what? Wait a minute, what?
I just let you say it louder than me.
Went home to mom?
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you
have meatloaf night, man?
Date night?
What meatloaf night?
This.
Gotta get home. So, as afraid as I am, let's talk about what might have happened. What's the core of this theory? So,
at its heart, this theory proposes that a law enforcement officer, either on or off duty, encountered Maura before the official responder arrived. And whether that officer acted with malicious intent or made some mistake that spiraled out of control, the result was the same, and that is that Maura vanished. The most common variation is that the officer offered her a ride. And whether she willingly accepted it or he like placed her in the car, which, you know, well, frankly, a cop can do. We just don't know. But if someone in uniform approached her, she most likely felt she had no choice. Like, this girl that is, you know, has been to West Point, regardless of, you know, the fact that she resigned because she had to, whatever. You don't get into West Point without having some pretty damn high, you know, standards. And she was a student at a university. I mean, you know, this is not some tweaker that's out.
Respect for a uniformism.
Yeah, this is not a girl that if a cop confronts her, I just do not see this as a girl as somebody that's gonna like attack him or try to run away or so. It's just
going with you.
Yeah, I just don't see it. So I think if somebody approached her and said, you know, I need you to sit in the back of my vehicle, I'm gonna put you in the back. I mean, all that's very reasonable. It happens at accidents all the time.
It's cold out here. Let's sit in the back while we figure this out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just the authority of the badge could have either overridden fear, or your fear doesn't matter. When a cop comes up and is like, you know, we're going to put you in the back of the car. We need to figure out what's going on. I mean, you can be scared to death, but unless you're out of your freaking mind, you're probably going to comply. Or unless you really fear that this officer's up to no good, in which case, you know, I would encourage everybody to fight like hell. I don't give a shit if he has a badge or not, because if you feel like he's trying to kidnap you, you should fight like hell. But other than that, if somebody went up to her and said, you know, I'm putting you in the back of the car, she's getting in the back of the car. But from there, the possibilities diverge. One scenario suggests that the encounter turned fatal, whether it was an accident or, you know, maybe an unwanted advance or something like that. And then the officer panicked and took steps to cover it up. Or the other one posits that Maura was taken elsewhere, harmed, and then her remains were disposed of in a way that has evaded discovery to this day.
What would motivate a cover-up on a departmental level? Because surely someone would speak out.
So that's where
you would hope.
You would hope. But that's where the theory really leans toward systemic preservation more than conspiracy. If the officer was never officially on the scene and no one filed an internal report, there'd be no paper trail.
He just wasn't there.
Yeah. And that's how the incident disappears. No witnesses, no whistleblowers, and no institutional incentive to dig into ghost entry. And I mean, we know, I think this day is probably coming to an end if it's not already at an end because of GPS technology. But back in 2004, and for the longest damn time, I mean, if you had a company vehicle, whether you're a cop or whatever, and you went out and drove it, like they didn't know. There was nothing to say this vehicle moved when it wasn't supposed to. And I don't even really know how much GPS tracking there is on police cars, because, you know, I managed a fleet of about 100 commercial vehicles, and there's specific work hours that my guys were assigned to work. And so I had alerts set up. If this vehicle moves past midnight, I get a text message. I know it's on the move, and I can either be like, oh yeah, they got a call, I know what's going on, or where the hell are you going with my truck at midnight? But with cops, I don't even know if that's possible, because they get called out
constantly
on a pretty regular basis. I mean, you know, if you're in emergency services, even if you're off duty, if some shit goes down, everybody comes in. So I don't know about that. I mean, I think it's probably very possible, because their supervisors could do the same thing. They could be like, oh yeah, well, we called him out, so that makes sense. So there probably is, but I just don't know. What I do know is that in 2004, that shit just didn't exist. And then there's been some online discussions that have pointed to unverified rumors about Chief Jeff Williams, including disciplinary concerns and potential alcohol misuse, to the effect of like driving drunk the police cruiser.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and I will also say that there is evidence that points to the fact that 001 was the chief's vehicle, which he says was not. But I have seen that insinuated, at least. But again, none of these claims have been substantiated, and we can't provide them as fact because they're not. I mean, they could be, but we can't confirm that they're fact. We have no idea. What's more productive is to focus on the institutional behavior, the delayed searches, the absence of proper documentation, the unwillingness to provide transparency about vehicles, officer locations, or logs. I mean, it's all fishy as shit to me that a department, and I've already said it, but it's very fishy that a department doesn't just come out immediately and be like, oh, absolutely not. 001 is assigned to this person. This person was in this location.
Yeah.
I think most police forces are able to do that pretty easily, at least to the fact of this is the cruiser that is assigned to this vehicle.
Right.
And they do that for this very reason. Because if they have a shitty officer that's doing bad shit to people, and you say, maybe you don't get his badge number or whatever, but you can get his cruiser number and you turn that in, they want to know about that. And so it's for this very reason. And the fact that they claim that they don't do that, it's weird, to say the least.
So what about Maura's actions that night? How does this theory explain her behavior?
So that's an important angle. Maura had taken deliberate steps, like, at least in my opinion, she took deliberate steps to plan a short getaway. Like we've talked about, she wasn't running for her life or whatever. And this all points to an intent to leave temporarily, not permanently. She made the calls to the condo rental place, and these aren't the actions of person that is up to no good. This is somebody that just needed a break. And they also reflect a level of emotional strain, someone in a state that may not have been thinking entirely clearly when approached by authority. And we also discussed the fact that she has some legal issues in her past, in my opinion, not significant, but in that moment, she may have seen it as a lot more significant than it was. Yeah. And it does put her in a vulnerable position. First of all, she's wrecked on the side of the road, and she's kind of at the mercy of law enforcement because it's not like she can call dad and he can be there in 10 minutes.
They're usually like, Miss Murray, we've seen this from you before. And yeah.
Yeah. And she's vulnerable to them being able to put her in a police car. Very vulnerable in that situation.
Well, what about her missing items? Couldn't that suggest someone took her by force?
So yeah, that is where the evidence gets eerie. Maura's cell phone, wallet, backpack, keys, never been found. There's no physical trail beyond the scent dogs, no footprints, no sign that she wandered into the woods or anything else. So that does support the theory that she left in another vehicle, which is kind of all we're talking about tonight, is the fact that she got into another vehicle. It could have been driven by someone that she perceived as trustworthy. We know that she told Butch Atwood she wouldn't get in the car with her. If it was law enforcement, it does make sense why she told him no, but then would get into their vehicle.
Yeah. So what is the strongest argument against this theory?
The lack of direct evidence. No whistleblowers have come forward. No officer's been implicated. The FBI has never corroborated claims of a cover-up. Maura's family, particularly Julie, has publicly emphasized that they believe the investigation was flawed, but not malicious. Julie has stated that she believes incompetence, not conspiracy, best explains the early missteps. I agree with her. And that does matter because while systemic flaws abound, from the lack of urgency to the sloppy documentation to all the shit that I have called these guys asshats for, there is a world of difference between cops doing a bad job and cops murdering somebody and making them disappear, you know?
So could a single officer have done this alone without help?
So it's possible. You know, we know that it was a really small department, and especially in 2004, internal accountability mechanisms are minimal, to say the least. I mean, even now, in really small police forces, they kind of are just sent to do their own thing. I mean, we just had the chief of police not too far away from here that was just convicted for warning his, I don't know, woman he was sleeping with, that the DCI was getting ready to raid her house. So, and that's a tiny police force, Manderson.
Yeah.
That's a tiny police force. So this shit does happen, and it is probably more prevalent in small departments just because they don't have the policies and procedures in place.
The funding.
Right. I mean, just not the direction, you know, because the fact of the matter is, this is an absolute fact. If you go to a teeny tiny little medical clinic at the smallest little town in the smallest state or whatever, you're probably not going to see the world's best cardiologist. That applies to everything. You know, if you are like a really solid homicide investigator, a really good decorated cop, whatever, there's all kinds of departments that are going to be looking for you. Most of these departments are staffed by guys that grew up in the community, and they're like, I need a job, and this one has benefits and pays pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go become a cop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're not getting, and then, you know, they work on the force for 20 years or whatever, and then they become chief of police or they become the sheriff or whatever. And sometimes that means you get really, really good, solid cops, and they know the community and they know the people, and they're in it for the right reasons. And sometimes it means you get a douchebag that could never, ever be a cop in a larger department. But
he's just drawing a check waiting for 65.
Yeah. But because they need a warm body in a car to get, you know, the speeders over, then he has the job. So if an officer wasn't logged on duty or if they deviated from their route, it could very easily go unnoticed unless someone reported it. And if no one saw Maura get into the car and the officer never said anything, there'd never be a record of it. So the system does allow for it. Not out of malevolence necessarily, but because no one was watching. The very structure that should have protected Maura might have enabled her disappearance.
Still, there's no body, no scene, no physical evidence.
And that's what keeps this theory in limbo. It accounts for motive, opportunity, and failure, but it lacks any confirmation. If Maura was taken by someone in uniform, then the uniform gave them power. If the system didn't follow up, that power turned to erasure. The law enforcement theory remains one of the most unnerving possibilities, not just for what it suggests about Maura's fate, but for what it says about how easily people can vanish and when trust is misplaced and oversight is absent. But I do have to interject here that I've actually researched several cases of officers committing murder or rape on the job, but they're almost always out by themselves. They end up pulling some young single girl over. She's all alone in her car. They do bad things. This cop knew, if this theory was true, this cop knew that, first of all, I've got witnesses on scene. I've got a woman watching out her window. Yeah. Because Faith Westman called and she said,
somebody's smoking out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And, she's communicating with the 911 dispatcher, and you know, I mean, you don't have to be in emergency services. If you've ever heard a police scanner, you know the chatter. Dispatch is continually updating responding officers and, you know, all responding personnel. This is what's happening on scene. This is what's going on. I'm being told now that
that's why we say stay on the phone until we're done with you.
Right. Yeah. And so the idea that I don't know, I just find it would be unbelievably brazen for a cop that wasn't supposed to be there to somehow race to the scene and kidnap a girl and escape, knowing
vanish right up.
People are watching out their windows and one of his officers is on their way. I don't know. That's a long shot.
Sounds like a Lifetime movie.
It kind of does. You know, I mean, if he had just happened upon her, maybe. But even then, I find it, I mean, if he knew that any help was 45 minutes away and he was the only one there, well, then that opens that door wide open.
Yeah.
But the idea that, I don't know, I can't put a ton of stock into this theory just because the timing and the fact that he knows he's being watched.
Yeah.
Likely.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
This next theory I'm not too fond of.
Yeah. Anytime I have to speak this piece of shit's name, I'm not too fond.
It's like, if we speak his name too much, will he appear?
I hope so, because I'd love to have.
Are you packing today?
Piece of shit.
Are you packing today?
I don't need to be packing for this guy.
Just saying.
I have one arm and I would kill this son of a bitch.
All right.
I'm telling you what, that's how bad I despise this guy.
Okay, take a deep breath and let's unpack this guy.
So that name that we're talking about is Israel Keys.
Yuck.
And his name has a way of infecting any cold case that dares to leave too many questions unanswered. If you don't know who Israel Keys is, and it's likely that a lot of our listeners don't.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, he's not a very well-known serial killer.
But when you do know him, you'll never forget him.
Wish the hell you didn't know him.
Yeah. I'd rather sit in a room full of dolls.
Oh, man. This guy is one of the scariest serial killers I have ever heard about.
Same.
And a lot of that is because I have never even heard of somebody that planned like this guy planned.
Calculated beyond belief.
So if you don't know who he is, he was a serial killer that was active from the late 90s up to 2012 when he was finally caught.
That is too close to home.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
And we know that he buried caches all over the United States. We know one is in Wyoming. That we know for a fact. That's been confirmed by the FBI. And in these caches, he would store weapons and other items that he would need in order to commit murder. And then...
just in case he wanted to commit a murder in that place someday.
And then he would fly from his home in Alaska into the United States, where he would then rent a car and drive for several hundred miles, commit a murder of a total stranger. He has absolutely no victim profile whatsoever. This guy does not fit any of the FBI profiling because he didn't care who he killed. He'd kill men, he'd kill women, he'd kill old, he'd kill young. He didn't have any sort of a victim profile.
If you were breathing, he wanted to kill
people, and he didn't want to get caught doing it. And so if he happened upon you and the situation was right, he killed you.
Mm-hmm.
And so he killed all over the country. We have no idea how many victims.
It's disgusting.
I have a theory that there was 14, but that's my theory. The FBI theorizes there was 11 because of the 11 skulls left in his cell.
Okay. I'm assuming eventually... No. But I'm assuming eventually we'll get through, or are you going to...
So I'll just quickly tell you, okay. Israel Keys was caught And when he decided that it was time, he just killed himself in his cell. And when he killed himself, using his own blood, he drew 11 skulls and left them along with this weird ass suicide poem note thing.
Okay.
And so that's why the FBI thinks that there's likely 11 victims, because there was 11 skulls. My theory, which I'm not going to get into tonight, but my theory says there's 11 unknowns because we know that he killed 3. He admitted to killing 3. And that I think that they are not included in those 11 skulls. There's a lot more reasons why I think that, but anyway, shortly, in brief, that's this piece.
He'll have to get his own episode.
At least one.
Yeah.
So the theory first gained traction not through any official channels, but on Reddit, where amateur sleuths tried to match timelines, geography, methods. The subreddit Maura Murray began speculating around 2013 that Keyes might have been in the area of Haverhill, New Hampshire, around the time that Maura vanished. And he does have ties to the Northeast, specifically a rumored connection to property in Constable, New York. And that has fueled the idea that he could have hunted in the region. We know that he did hunt in the region. But the timeline runs into trouble, which we'll talk about. So speculation just doesn't equal evidence. So the most often cited pieces of supporting evidence are the geography of Constable, New York. And it's located near the Vermont border. And from there, it's only a few hours drive to Haverhill. In theory, it's possible, but that's where the trail cools. And we know for a fact that Keyes, like I said, he would drive for hours. I mean, he would put significant miles on before he commit a crime.
Yeah.
And so his goal was to drive for a long time, commit the crime, and be out of the state before the bodies were ever even found or anybody even knew that they were gone. And the couple that he killed, nobody even knew about them until he was arrested. And then he said, "I'll give you 2 bodies and a name." And so then he gave them their names, and then it turns out he did murder this couple. It's a horrible story, but anyway, so they didn't even know that couple. They knew they were missing. They knew they disappeared, but they didn't know they were murdered. They had no idea what happened. So, but there's no legal deed that ties Keyes to a property in Constable. The claim appears to originate solely from anonymous Reddit posts, and the FBI never confirmed that he owned or used land there. And I will say the FBI has been extraordinarily open with the Israel Keyes case. I think he's dead. The reason is he's dead, and they know that he killed more victims. They'd like help solving them. So, I mean, if you ever want to torment your brain, you can get on there, and on the FBI's site, you can watch all the footage. It's about 8 hours, if I remember correctly, because I've watched it all, of his interviews. And it's mind-numbing. You just want to jump through the TV and grab him by the throat.
Yeah.
But anyway, they have posted his timelines. That's how I know for a fact that he buried a cache in Wyoming, because he told the FBI that. The FBI told us that. You can get on there and you can look at the timeline. He flew into...
They found it?
The cache? No. I know where it's at. And I think the FBI looked, but you can get on there and you can see, like, they've posted, like, he flew into Salt Lake City on this date at this time. He rented this car. He put 565 miles on this car before the FBI is open about this case. So if they suspected that he had a property in Constable, New York, they'd tell us. They have no reason to keep it secret. And then second is timing. The claim goes that Keyes could have been traveling in the Northeast in early 2004, but the FBI's timeline that I said they released they showed that he had known movements that put him in Utah during that time, working at a construction job. That's likely around the time that he was in Wyoming and around the Wyoming area, burying that cash and stuff. And so while Keyes was secretive and mobile, the FBI considers the Utah alibi solid. I mean, the one thing that he didn't have a lot of choices. He lived in Alaska, so he had to fly here. I mean, there actually was a couple times when he drove here, but he came here he came here sometimes with a legitimate purpose to be here. And then he did this shit while he was here. So he almost had to fly here, and then he would have had to have rented cars here, which we know he did. And so it's not that difficult for the FBI to be like, he was in Utah, and we know that he was here on this day. He didn't have time to drive all the way to New Hampshire and all the way back to Utah, because that's a hell of a long ways.
No shit, yeah.
So, and then next is the method. Maura disappeared cleanly with no forensic evidence. Now this one is one that I kind of come across, and I put it on there, but we don't know Keyes' method. We know his method for two people, and the one is only because he admitted to it, and that was the couple where he entered their home in the middle of the night, took them by gunpoint, took them to a abandoned property, did terrible things, and then killed them. We only know that because he said that's what he did. The girl in Alaska, I don't know what happened with him. I think he was spiraling like serial killers do, because he was extraordinarily methodical in what he did. And then all of a sudden, he kidnaps and murders a girl in his town in Alaska.
Yeah.
And then steals her ATM card, and then tells them that they need to pay a ransom by putting it on her ATM card, which he then is using all the way across the United States. So they were able to track him by the ATM card. That's how he gets arrested.
It's his last hurrah.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. He had to have been spiraling, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, this one is even more unlikely to me than the cop, because I'm not a mathematician, but the odds of we're going to be generous and say we have a 19-minute window.
Okay.
The odds that a serial killer, any serial killer, happened upon Maura in 19 minutes and was able to get her in their car and get away
quietly.
I mean,
yeah, cleanly.
It is so unlikely.
Yeah.
I mean, is this something that Keyes could have done? I think it's very possible that a crime like this could fit Keyes' MO. We know for a fact that he told the FBI that at least one of his victims was ruled an accident. They didn't even know that they were murdered, according to Keyes. We don't know who that victim was, so we can't confirm it. But he did say one. So we don't even know. We know that he killed in multiple different ways. We know that he disposed of the bodies in multiple different ways.
Yeah, he was just...
It was something else. So, but the fact of the matter is the likelihood that you're going to run into a serial killer ever is extraordinarily remote. You're probably more likely to get hit by an asteroid. The fact that you're going to run into a serial killer in a 19-minute window when you just happen to wreck your car on a little country road in, nowhere, New Hampshire, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. And the other thing is, Keyes did not rely on coincidence, except for his last victim. He did not do this. He planned for months, and then he would look for exactly the right situation. I mean, the couple that he killed, he said that he had pretty much pre-selected them and knew exactly what he was going to do months ahead of time. And then, or he would say, I was looking for this house that had exactly this set of circumstances. I needed to know they didn't have a dog. I needed to know. And then he would drive around until he found those circumstances. It wasn't necessarily the people, because he didn't care who he killed. It was the circumstances. I need this specific set of circumstances. And this was relatively early in his criminal arc, when he was at his most methodical.
Okay.
So I find it very unlikely that he would have stumbled upon a girl and kidnapped her, because he just didn't do that.
Right. So what about the idea that Maura could have been random prey? If a stranger had been cruising along Route 112 that night, maybe lost, maybe hunting, is it possible she just became a target of opportunity?
So it's worth asking, but Keyes was not a drifter who just wandered into towns and improvised. Like I said, he buried caches all over. He knew when he went to an area, he knew he was going there to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And he would, like I said, he'd study the towns, he'd study the layouts, he'd study everything. And so when he went, he was looking, again, for a certain circumstance. The idea that this asshat would have been like, I am going to go looking for a single girl that has crashed her car.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that's not. His whole thing was, I'm never going to get caught, up until whatever happened at the end. But I mean, it is possible that he could have been like, I am going to find a young 20-year-old girl, and these are the circumstances that I need in order for her to qualify to be the one that I'm going to kill. But this guy did not just drive down the road and see somebody standing on the side of the road
all the way to New Hampshire.
Yeah. And just automatically decide that, hey, I'm going to kill this person. He just didn't operate that way. So I think that I just don't buy this theory at all. So, yeah, I mean, we know all the circumstances of Maura's disappearance. There was no way that Keyes would have known. So we know that she just randomly decided that she was going to take this trip up to New Hampshire and going to rent a condo and all of that kind of stuff. And so, I don't know.
We've stumped him. So how does that stack up psychologically with Keyes' profile for victims?
Not well at all. And for all the reasons that we've talked about, it doesn't fit. And because Keyes is such a freaking weird one, like I said, he doesn't fit like the FBI profiles of a serial killer, because his target victim wasn't a person. It was a circumstance.
Yeah.
And that's an odd one, but that's how he prayed.
Did he ever say why he prayed like that?
No. I mean, he said he didn't want to get caught. I mean, have you seen the interviews with him?
Some, but not.
He's such an arrogant, just a callous, heartless son of a bitch.
Yeah.
But no, he never really went into a ton of detail on, he toyed. It was all a game.
Yeah.
Because the deal he wanted. He said that if he got it in writing that he would be executed immediately, that he would give them all the information that they wanted. He would tell all about his victims and everything.
He didn't want to wait around and...
Nope. He did not want to be in prison, period.
Did they comply?
No. I mean, there's really...
I laughed, but that's how I felt about it.
There's really no way that they could...
I know. They didn't comply because he killed himself. Come on, Angela, rewind.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think there was any...
Intention.
There's any way that... The laws don't work like that. You know what I mean? Unfortunately.
For somebody that creepy, I'd bend the law a little bit.
I think they should. I mean, to me, it makes no sense.
It's probably a good thing I'm not on those boards, huh?
But I don't think so. Because if you got a son of a bitch like this, that I've killed however many people,
yeah,
and we know for a fact The one poor girl that he killed in Alaska, he cut her body up with a chainsaw and then put it through the ice as he was ice fishing. The other poor couple went through unimaginable torture and terror and then were killed and left in the basement of an abandoned house. Yeah, this piece of shit, I don't understand why we can't, if he wants us to kill him, I don't understand why we can't say absolutely yes, we will give you the death penalty and we will execute you on this day. Give us all the information and then go through with it. Why not?
Yeah.
Why does he deserve automatic appeals if he doesn't even want the appeals?
It's disgusting.
It happens all the time, though. There's so many prisoners on death row that are just like, just kill me already. I'm done with this. I don't want the appeals. I'm ready to die. Do it. Yeah. We still don't do it.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about the death penalty, I don't know how you can agree with that one.
I just had a very malicious thought, and it's probably going to be very unpopular, but I think all of those guys, you know how people like to watch dog fighting?
Yes, I do.
Let's just throw all of them in a ring with really tall fences and just
let the
random shit and let them take each other out.
I have a really hard time having any sympathy for somebody that can do to people what some of these criminals do. Like Israel Keys, this shit he did, I really couldn't care what happened to him. I really couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, when Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in prison, I was like, sayonara.
I kind of breathed a sigh of relief, to be honest.
Sure didn't shed a tear.
No.
You know, so when Bundy was put to death, I mean, I am not one of these callous guys that's going to be down there cheering. I think that's sick as shit. Like, that is too close to.
I can't imagine you being
the same side.
That would watch it.
No, I wouldn't want nothing to do with it. I mean, but I certainly don't cry for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I cry for their victims.
Yeah.
But for them, I don't really give a shit what happens to them.
So if the FBI never named her as a Keys victim and the psychology doesn't align, why does this theory persist?
You know, I think some of it is because it's terrifying. I think some of it is too that we know Keys has
caches everywhere.
He has caches everywhere, but we also know that he has at least 11 victims. We know
everywhere.
We don't. We know that he left 11 skulls drawn in blood.
Yeah.
So he pretty much said that he had, all kinds of victims.
Yeah.
So I do think that plays into it. We know that he has all of these unnamed victims and people want to solve mysteries. And it's like I said earlier in the show, people are a lot more comfortable applying Maura's disappearance to a killer who is dead.
Yeah.
He was evil and now he's no longer in existence.
Yeah.
And that sums it up nicely and we can sleep better at night. I'm not saying that they're wrong to do that because it's human nature, but I am saying that when the evidence just doesn't align, it just doesn't align.
Yeah.
And I mean, I go through the same shit with Delwayne Eaton on Rocky Mountain Reckoning. I hate that man so much, and I think he is so disgusting and so evil. I think he's right up there with Keys. I don't think he's nearly as intelligent as Keys.
No.
But as far as evil, he's right up there with Keys. But still, when I'm looking at cases, I gotta be honest and be like, okay, it doesn't fit. Yeah. It couldn't have been.
Hate to say it, but it doesn't.
Couldn't have been him. But, on the other side of the coin, assigning it to him, especially if it's the police, but I take my investigations as seriously as if I call somebody out as a suspect, then I have a responsibility to really feel that way and have a reason to say it.
Right.
And when you call somebody out as a suspect, and if it's believed, then that takes the focus off of the real person. If there's nothing there, and we see that shit happen when cops get tunnel vision. And so as a responsible investigator, I think you have to check yourself, and you have to be like, as much as I would like this son of a bitch. And, you know, it's been several years ago, but I did the same thing with keys, not in Maura's case, but in Wyoming, where I really looked for missing persons in Wyoming that would fit, or unsolved murders, and there just isn't any. I'm not saying that he never murdered anybody in Wyoming, but I don't think it's likely. I think he planned to. I think he got caught before he had a chance to.
So do we know if the FBI considered the theory seriously?
They looked into it. According to statements from the Bureau and from journalist Billy Jensen, the FBI's VICAP system does not list Maura Murray among Keyes' suspected victims. Julie Murray has stated publicly that she doesn't believe Keyes was involved. She leans towards someone that Maura knew or trusted, someone who used that trust against her. And that's also consistent with the systemic failures that we've explored in, you know, the previous episodes. No BOLO was issued, no immediate search. If Maura did get into a car with somebody that she trusted, or even someone who offered help at the right moment, we have to consider that trust was her vulnerability. And, you know, I mean, the fact that, and we talked about it where with like the local theory versus somebody that she knew or whatever. I think every theory that requires somebody, a stranger, to have stopped and convinced her to get into the car is less likely. You know what I mean? And so I think like a Keyes.
So it takes more and more time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where does this leave us?
So it leaves us with a theory that's captivating and exciting because a serial killer's involved and
creepy,
but completely unsupported. So like we said, Keyes was in Utah in February of 2004. We know that. It's been verified by employment records, travel records, all of that. His methods involve surveillance, kill kits, staged crime scenes, none of which are present in Maura's case. There's no confirmed sightings. There's no forensic leaks. There's nothing that places him in New Hampshire. And the FBI does not include Maura among his suspected victims. And again, they have been extraordinarily open with Israel Keyes, way more than other cases. And so they have absolutely no reason to lie. If they thought that he could have conceivably killed her, it would be out there. And then her actions suggest planning, not panic.
So the real danger in this theory is distraction.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I was saying, it diverts the attention from more plausible scenarios, and it feeds the mythos around Keyes instead of focusing on what Maura's case actually tells us, that she was likely heading for that short getaway that we talked about. You know, she got into a car willingly, and that car was not driven by Israel Keyes. It was likely driven by someone way less famous and somebody way more familiar to Maura. So we've dissected pretty much every prominent theory surrounding Maura's disappearance. We have, you know, tonight we've talked about the friend, love interest, bad intentions, possible involvement by law enforcement, the local predator, and even Israel Keyes. And each path led us through different versions of that snowy Monday night in February of 2004. But now it's time to step back and assess what remains when we lay the evidence side by side. So first, you know, we have all the facts of the case. We have that she's packed her belongings. We have the MapQuest directions, the bags, the phone, of the calls to the condo rentals, all that kind of stuff. We have no confirmed sightings of her. And she claimed that she contacted AAA for roadside assistance, but there's no record. We know that she lied about that.
And the abrupt scent loss, just 100 yards from the car with no footprints. That still implies that she left the scene in another vehicle. But whether she got involuntarily or not changes everything.
And that's the access point. So let's weigh each theory based on our investigation on FBI data, behavioral patterns, and the realities of the case. So theory number one is the voluntary disappearance. This idea suggests that Maura ran away to start over, but her actions don't support that at all, at least in my opinion.
Right.
She had no passport. She had a tiny amount of cash. She left behind essentials. And I think the biggest essentials, like I said, that she left is any ties to her previous life, like her memories, the stuff that is sentimental to us.
Yeah.
She didn't touch that. And there was no financial activity after February 9th. I think it should be noted, we haven't mentioned this, but Fred continued for years putting money in her account to the tune of several $1,000s, just in case she had her ATM card and needed it.
And it was never touched.
Never been touched. Nope. FBI VICAP profiling supports foul play over voluntary disappearance. Her behavior leading up to her disappearance, we've talked about it. She was planning a weekend getaway, period.
No, the more we talk about it, the more I want one.
I know. So I'd put the
Not ending like this.
No, not ending like this, but so I'd put the likelihood of this theory at about 5% at best. I just don't think that she disappeared because she wanted to.
Right.
And I don't think her actions point to that at all.
I agree.
Then there is the theory that we never really talked about, and I guess I should bring it up quickly here, and that is the theory that she committed suicide. Apparently, Fred made some comment of, at some point, that she did the old squaw, which apparently he had told the girls that Native women, when in the winters, when there wasn't enough food to feed the tribe, elderly, especially Native women, would walk off into the woods and die. That is 100% fact. They did do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has somehow been tied to the idea that she was committing suicide. And so the idea that, first of all, I don't think that Fred ever said that. But, or I don't know for a fact that he ever said that, but, even if he did, I think it was probably an offhand comment, something. And then along with this one is she died of exposure in those woods, you know? And both of these, I think I can team together because they all pretty much end in the same. And that is, first of all, there's nothing that points to suicide. Nothing at all that points to suicide. And then nothing really points to the fact that she would just run off into the woods.
Yeah.
I think it's ludicrous. And then we have the search teams, we have the scent tracking dogs, then we have the cadaver dogs, multiple searches, not that night, not when it really mattered, not when they should have been done, but over the course of the years, it has been searched tirelessly and nothing. And as far as I'm concerned, her body would have been found. If she walked into the woods and died of exposure, we would have found it by now. And so I put that theory at 3%. I think it's more likely that she was running away than it is that she died in those woods that night.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we know she went to the effort of creating a cover story, and that's not a sign of despair. It's a sign of control.
Exactly. It reflects intention, a calculated distance. To me, it spells out very clearly that she had every intention to go back to college.
Yeah.
We talked about the reasons why that is, but,
Mhm.
I'm going to take my nursing student books to commit suicide or to run away it just is, it's a dumb theory. In my opinion, it's just dumb. And then theory number 3 is that she hitched a ride with a tandem driver and then vanished. And, we talked about that. The tandem driver thing kind of points to the fact that it was somebody that she knew, because that's a little bit of a misnomer. I would say she either hitched a ride or got in with a tandem driver. And it explains a lot. It explains the packed car. It explains the fabricated family emergency. And then something went wrong, just like we've talked about, So I put the likelihood of that one at a 35%. And then we have the local...
Jump.
That's a big jump. I think that... First of all, I think the other theories that we've talked about are absolute garbage. I don't think there's any evidence to support them, or very, very minimal evidence. I think what people point to as evidence of she was running away, for instance, is just made up.
Right.
So next we have the local perpetrator abduction. Maura crashes, the passing local. We've talked about it tonight. I put the likelihood of that one at 30%.
It's chilling to think the difference between the tandem theory and this one is simply whether she knew the person who picked her up.
Yeah, exactly. One implies trust and the other kind of more of an ambush.
I don't like it.
Yeah, me either. Then we have the law enforcement theory. This one...
You don't like this one.
Yeah, this one's a lot more controversial. And, there is some stuff that is fishy. We've talked about it. There's some shit that I really don't like. I think at the very least, I feel very comfortable in saying that this police department had some piss poor management going on. I really do. But I think the likelihood that law enforcement was involved is like I say 15% is what I come up with. That I think it's more likely than one of the most prominent theories is that she ran away. And I put that one really freaking low.
Yeah.
This one I think is more likely than her running away. I just do not, for the life of me, believe that she ran away. So that one is at 15% in my opinion. Then we have the Israel Keys one that we just got done talking about. For all the reasons I said, this one's 2% at best.
Just to get on the board?
Yeah, maybe less than 1%, really. Is it possible? Yeah, kind of in the same realm of, aliens abducted her is possible. It's probably more likely that aliens abducted her than Israel Keys killed her. But,
So it boils down to this. Someone she knew or someone she didn't, but either way, it looks like someone else decided her fate.
Yeah. I think all evidence points that she was planning a weekend getaway. She had absolutely no intention to disappear forever. And she sure as shit didn't die in those woods. Now, maybe one day they're going to find a body and I will be labeled an idiot, but I don't think so. I just do not.
I think if they find a body, it's because someone put it there after the fact.
I do too. If her body was in those woods, it would have been found.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't just vanish into thin air. Aliens did not abduct her. Somebody took her and somebody murdered her.
So why did the tandem driver and the local predator theories lead your list?
So, I've kind of discussed that a bunch, but it really boils down. That central to me is the biggest evidence that we have in this case. I don't think that you can read too much bullshit into what a 20-year-old girl wrote her professors.
Right.
Unless you're looking at it the way I do, which I think makes a lot more logical sense.
Just buying time.
She was coming back to school. She didn't want to have bad grades because of whatever she was planning on doing. I think, to me, the evidence is overwhelming that she was planning a weekend trip and something went wrong. And so, I mean, she wrecked the car. That was not planned. I don't believe that was planned for a second. I think that I do think the wreck was curious. I don't know on that. But I also know that I've worked accidents where, especially with a younger person that's driving and something falls off the seat and they think they can reach down and get it, and she was heading into a 90-degree corner. And so that is one scenario where I could see her accidentally cutting too sharp into the corner. You know, I mean, who knows? Could have been a million different things. But
it was my son's first accident, and it was chicken nuggets.
Yeah. It is a very common accident cause. It really is.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever brought her to being on the side of the road that night, she got into somebody else's car. She just did. She walked down the road for about 100 yards and she got into somebody's car. And so, you know, the local perpetrator theory fits the sudden disappearance and the lack of trace. And I mean, so does the tandem driver theory.
So how does her mindset rule out suicide?
Because she was creating time and space. First of all, there's no indication that she said goodbye in any way. She was saying goodbye. Yeah, there was the email to her fiance, but it wasn't a suicide email. It wasn't how it was structured.
That could be a different kind of goodbye anyway.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And, you know, I mean, we've got to take into account the fact that, you know, regardless of the claims made against Fred, I've been very clear about how I feel about that. But explain then her mom, who was alive at this time. Explain
her sister.
Explain her sisters, her brother.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we talk a lot about her sisters and we forget that I think there was 5 kids total. That's just come from memory, but I'm pretty positive there was 5. What about the rest of the family? What about her friends at school? What about she didn't say goodbye to a single person? That's impossible. Sorry, impossible for me to believe.
So then why do so many people distrust law enforcement in this case?
Because they did a shitty job.
You just wanted to be able to say that, didn't you?
They did a shitty job. And I don't know if it was just, it very, very well might have been, like I said, it was a small department. Maybe they had 0 to no training. Maybe is what they do is they pull speeders over. And that's pretty much the most exciting thing that happens. You know, every once in a while, somebody dies of a heart attack and they got to run to the scene. And occasionally there's a car wreck. Maybe it's as simple as that, because that's not that crazy when you're talking about small departments. There are, I mean, we have a number of them in Wyoming. Warning, if you're not from Wyoming, if you're driving through a little town, there are cops that are going to pull you over if you're going 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, because that's how they fund the town. And
that's just what they do.
And I think that that's pretty much the case in a lot of small towns across the country. They generate revenue for the city by pulling speeders over. Yeah, granted, I don't want to take anything away from, you know, small town police, because they're every bit as important as big city police for sure, but their departments just don't have the resources. And so, but they mishandled this case so badly. And I think that even the layperson can look at it and say, wait, what? You thought you had somebody that was in a car crash and you didn't even look for him, and it was like freaking colder than shit that night? And I think because of that, we don't trust them. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should, because that was a pretty big misstep. But to understand what happened to Maura, we also have to examine what didn't happen. And the institutional failures that left gaps in the hours and the days after her disappearance. Because in cases like this, it's not just the person who's missing, it's the chances to find them that slip away. And that's the heartbreaking thing in this case, is I think that if the cops would have done a thorough investigation, a thorough crash investigation, and identified the fact that we've got a young girl running around out here that likely has a head injury or very well could have a head injury, we've got to find her. And we do the things that I mentioned earlier. We check local motels. We talk. I think there's a very real possibility that she could have been found. Whether she would have been alive or not, who knows? It is not law enforcement's fault if some sick son of a bitch picked her up and did bad things. That is not their fault. I cannot hang that on their shoulders. But the fact that it was never solved, it might be on their shoulders.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So how does that even happen in a case like this? Why was there no urgency?
Well, I think we've talked about it. I think, my personal feelings on this is I think this was a very poorly run department. I'm just to be perfectly frank and honest. I have looked at a lot of the accusations against the police chief, and some of them seem to have some merit. And there does seem to be some locals that think the guy's kind of a shitty human being.
Okay.
That at least he's drank and driven the police car before. That he's maybe not of the most upstanding moral character to be a police chief. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that locals feel like it's true. At least some locals that I've seen. And so that comes from somewhere. That shit comes from somewhere. We talked about it in the Dana Stay case. If there's rumors, a lot of times there's a reason for those rumors. Mm-hmm. So I think in my opinion, he's a shitty police chief. And I think he runs a really loose ship. I think that his officers just kind of run willy-nilly, do what they want. And there's not a lot of accountability. There's absolutely zero. Or I shouldn't say there is. In 2004. I don't know. Hopefully this police force is completely changed.
I hope so too.
But
20 years later.
In 2004, I think there was some serious faults within the police force. And I think that they had no training. And I think that they just had a very lackadaisical Barney Fife kind of approach to it.
So you think the infrastructure just wasn't built to catch something like this?
Exactly. And, we've said this does happen in small departments, and we've talked about why it happens in small departments. And I think they did a shitty job, and I think they had a very bad, I think they had very bad protocols in place with zero freaking training, any competent training. I mean, it kind of defies reason, because, ambulance services, fire departments, most law enforcement, you have protocols that you follow, right? When this happens, this is what we do. And I don't know how some of these departments don't get on board with this shit. I mean, I was looking at a case the other day where the freaking sheriff mopped the floor of a murder scene.
Oh, no.
So the family wouldn't come. I mean, yeah, he's probably a really nice guy, but are you freaking kidding me? But absolutely no training. And I will also say that a lot of the fault for this, I don't know about this department. I'm not speaking about them directly. A shit ton of the responsibility for this falls on county commissioners and city council members who absolutely refuse to fund their departments.
Yeah.
They expect them to operate at a level like the freaking NYPD most elite SWAT team. But they absolutely refuse to pay to send them to any kind of trainings or to pay a wage that, you know, they can draw really talented officers.
Mm-hmm.
They pay them shit. They treat them like shit, and they never train them.
Yeah.
And so
Throw them in the deep end and swim.
Yeah, it's very possible that this is more of a political problem than it is a law enforcement problem. And that is one thing that never really gets talked about, is we always jump on the cops, but why are they shitty cops? Is it because they have no money and they have no choice?
There's some statistics for you to dig into.
Yeah. Well, I know it happens. I know it does, you know? And, you know, these cops would love to go for a 1 week training or something like that, but it costs money. And the county has to pay for them to go to that training. They got to put them up at a motel or whatever, and they won't allocate the funds because they need a bigger fireworks show or whatever the hell it is they're blowing their freaking money on. You know, so I think kind of to that point, when institutions fall short, advocacy fills the void. And, you know, I really do encourage people to pay attention to this kind of stuff in your own communities, because as much as we want to throw all of the blame on the law enforcement communities, a lot of the time they don't have the support that they need.
Yeah.
And, you know, the expectation is if you put on a uniform and a badge, you're automatically Perry Mason.
Yeah.
And
didn't he wear a suit?
It just doesn't work that way. Like, if you have no investigative training, if you've never investigated a crime, and, you know, I mean, you and I have probably investigated more crimes than a lot of these officers, you know? And so the expectation that they're going to arrive on scene and act appropriately, I mean, on like a fire department, for instance, the expectation that you're going to be put into a uniform and then immediately run into a structure fire and know exactly what to
be able to handle that hose with no training.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long period of time. I mean, like in Wyoming, it's like a year where you got to study and everything to get your firefighter 1. And then you got to do a whole nother one and study and take tests and everything, get your firefighter 2. And I realized that with police departments, typically they have like a police academy that they're sent to for a number of weeks or whatever that is. But we've talked about it in previous episodes. That doesn't go over this kind of shit.
Yeah.
People think it does, but it does not. The main priority of something like that is teaching cops how they keep themselves alive. This is how you deal with a subject that's trying to kill you. And yeah, that's probably the most important thing that we teach them in academy. And then after that, the sheriff or the police chief or whatever sends them to additional trainings to learn. This is what you do at an accident scene. This is what you do when somebody's suspected of DUI. This is what you do if you think somebody has drugs in their trunk. This is, you know, if you don't do that, they don't know. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I think the public has to really get involved on that side of things. And, you know, we have to demand accountability from our law enforcement agencies for sure, but we have to give them the tools in order to earn that accountability, you know? And not to get too political, but we've gone through this whole bullshit of defund the police.
Oh, I know.
And it's still very prevalent. And I am very afraid that within 5 to 10 years, we're going to start seeing some serious results. Not that we already haven't, but the officers that we have that are still working the streets received a lot of the training and stuff like that they're now not going to be able to receive in these departments that they're not funding. And I don't care politically where you come down. If you want cops that have the skill set to be able to go in and solve crimes and shit like that, they have got to be trained, and training costs money.
Yeah.
We've got to fund our law enforcement. We've got to fund their training.
Or else it's going to be a game of telephone, and the people who already were trained-ish trying to remember and trying to train the newbies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Training by telephone game. I, for one, don't really want to live in a world where my police officers are trained by the telephone game.
No, me either. And then I think that I don't know what the answer is in these cases, but I think we've got to have some legislation that dictates that at a certain point, information starts to be released. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't want to be in a situation where we're compromising the likelihood of a conviction if we're able to bring that person to court. And that is the reason that a lot of that is private.
Right.
But I think that there has to be a limit to that shit. I don't think that families and people like Fred, Maura's dad, should have to be suing because their FOIA requests are denied 20 years after their daughter disappeared.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And, I said it before. We're talking about this shit going back into the 60s, into the 50s, where since the case is still not solved, we can't release any information on it. There's probably, I don't know, Billy the Kid murders.
Yeah.
That they could probably say that shit. Where is the limit? Is it 100 years?
Because he would be in a museum, and that's different.
So is it 100 years? Is it 100? What's the limit? Where do we finally say, okay? And I think that it's going to have to be legislative. I think that there's going to have to be some laws passed that say, okay, John Bonet's case is, that was in 1996. We're looking at 30 years.
Don't remind me.
Her dad wants that information. What are you talking about? It's my high school reunion next year, my 30th.
No.
But her dad wants to be able to get that DNA information and so he can test it privately. He wants, and no, because the case is still open. You're telling me that you honestly have detectives committed to this case on a daily? Bullshit.
Doubt it.
Don't buy it for a second. And maybe that's where it is. Maybe once the case goes cold and a law enforcement agency decides we're putting this file in a back closet somewhere, I don't know, maybe some of that...
I rolled my eyes a lot tonight.
Maybe some of that information at that point gets released. And I don't know. Most of these cold cases, like I said earlier, are solved by DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell difference does it make?
Yeah. I say there's this couple of bills that you and I need to write now.
And maybe they say, okay, you are allowed to redact certain amount of holdback information. That information that only the killer would know. Okay, but everything else, we release it.
Yeah.
Or what? What's the other way? Because the John Bonet case was tried in the public. Yeah. I don't think there was... I look at the ransom letter. That should have never been released. That's your holdback information, dumbass.
Yeah.
But yet it was released to the press.
And wasn't it written on a notebook that they scribed and got the indentations? Am I thinking of a different...
You're not thinking of a different case, but one would hope that that's what happened. But no, the determination was that it was written on that notebook because on another page of that notebook, it said Mr. and Mrs. and there was a line. Could be an I, could be an R. They determined it was going to say Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, and that's how they determined that was the practice note. To me, that doesn't prove shit. That proves that maybe somebody wrote Mr. and Mrs. and then got distracted.
Stopped, yeah.
I'm not saying it wasn't the Notebook. I'm just saying it was never proven.
Okay.
And I'm also saying that it was written in a felt tip pen. It was written in a Sharpie, a black Sharpie. So it doesn't even, you don't push hard enough to leave it onto the next page.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of shit in that case. But anyway, I do think that the public I think that we need something to dictate that this information gets released earlier.
Mm-hmm. Let's work on it.
Okay, let's do it.
Like you don't have enough to do. So how has Julie kept Maura's case alive in all this?
Well, her advocacy has focused on dignity and facts, and it's not just her. It's her and her dad primarily. But she has kind of taken over as of late, but this was Fred's battle for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
And they've worked to correct misinformation. They've coordinated search efforts. They've sued. They've encouraged procedural improvements. I mean, they've used every tool that they have available at their disposal. Social media, in-person meetings. They've met with law enforcement. And they've continued calls for transparency. Julie has her TikTok video or her TikTok channel where she does an outreach campaign. She launched that in the 2020s, brought Maura Murray's case to a new generation of followers. She's coordinated the search efforts, like we said, targeting different key areas consistent with known scent zones and incomplete vehicle tracking. And she's also, and this is the part that always really irritates me in these cases, is when you have a family that is just absolutely, this person would not do this, this person would not leave. That counts for a shit ton to me.
Yeah.
And it should to law enforcement too. So.
Because who knows them better?
Exactly.
So advocacy didn't just keep the case alive, it reshaped it.
Yeah, completely. Public pressure changed the trajectory of the investigation. It contributed to law enforcement releasing more records. It pushed agencies to re-engage. And in broader terms, Maura's case became part of the national conversation of how missing adults are treated. The gaps it revealed helped drive reforms, including increased use of VICAP and discussions about BOLO protocols for adults.
So why did online advocacy gain so much traction?
Because people participated. People felt like they could help. From mapping routes to analyzing timelines, the public became a watchdog. And it's funny because while Maura's case is one of the big ones in the United States, it just is. It's funny because a lot of this didn't exist when she went missing. We didn't have the true crime communities that we have now. And so, I think her case really helped to drive a lot of that.
So what systemic changes has advocacy driven beyond this case?
So it's elevated public awareness around underreported missing persons, particularly adults. Cases like Maura's have pushed agencies to reconsider the delays that were often baked into policy. This bullshit of have to be missing 72 hours or 48 or whatever.
That's confusing if they're on.
Exactly. And advocates have successfully lobbied for legislation improving interagency communication, streamlining access to NAMUS, and creating standardized intake procedures across states. While the federal system still lacks consistency, the changes sparked by persistent public advocacy are just undeniable.
Could that pressure have made a difference back in 2004?
I think it already has. The renewed searches, the transparency, the continued pressure are all advocacy's fingerprints. And while we don't yet have justice, we do have some momentum. And, to answer your question just outright, I do think so. I mean, I have a belief that had everybody jumped on this, I think there's a very good likelihood that it could have been solved.
So all of it circles back to one thing. People didn't stop caring.
Exactly. When systems stall, advocacy pushes. When records vanish, advocates remember. When answers don't come, they keep asking. Advocacy's impact fuels ongoing efforts for justice, for Maura, and for every family that's still waiting. So that brings us to the next topic. And that is that on March 19th, 2004, just 5 weeks after Maura Murray vanished, another young woman went missing in northern New England. This time, the location was Montgomery, Vermont, and the victim was 17-year-old Brianna Maitland. She was last seen clocking out of work at the Black Lantern Inn around 11:20 p.m. Her car was found the next day, backed into an abandoned house along Route 118. The driver's door was open. Her belongings, including paychecks, contact lenses, and clothes, were still inside, but Brianna was gone.
And that happened just across the border, less than 100 miles from where Maura disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. The cases have some striking similarities. Both young women, rural highways, no confirmed witnesses to their disappearances. Their vehicles were found in eerie condition. Maura's scent trail vanished near the road, suggesting the vehicle exit that we talked about. Brianna's car was found backed up into the side of like an abandoned house barn thing, almost as if it was staged. I don't know. The whole thing's weird. Neither scene offered signs of a struggle, and both personal items remained: cell phone, paychecks, keys, contact lenses, backpacks, whatever, all indicators that they hadn't planned to leave on their own, and neither Maura nor Brianna has ever been found. Both cases sparked regional and national attention, igniting waves of speculation, frustration, and suspicion. But there are some crucial differences, too, in background, timeline, and investigative approach.
So let me ask you something.
Go for it.
Do investigators believe the two are connected at all?
Not officially. Authorities have stated that there's no confirmed link, but for years, the two cases have been linked in true crime communities, online sleuths. I mean, these two cases are definitely linked in the true crime community. But Brianna had her own complex story. And, she dropped out of high school. She was living independently, but she was more like couch surfing.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't really have her own place. She did work 2 jobs. She had friends, but she also had tensions. She had actually gotten into a fight not too long before she disappeared with another girl. We do know that she was at least involved in the drug scene at the peripheral level. I don't think that she was like a druggie, but we know that she was experimenting with drugs. She was at that age, where a lot of teens do that.
Right.
And her car, which was a pale green 1985 Oldsmobile of the big boats, it was found backed into this freaking abandoned house thing. And there was some odd things. We're going to be talking about her case. There was some odd things found in and around her car. And to me, it's even worse that the cops didn't take her case more serious. It's even worse than Maura's case, if you can believe that.
And also, like Maura, the theories are all over the place.
They are. Everything from a voluntary runaway to drug-related abduction to targeted foul play has been floated. In Brianna's case, some unverified theories suggest specific persons of interest. These particular persons are, I don't know, there's a group of boys that were like skiing, and then there's a couple of drug dealers that are pretty high on the suspect list in Brianna's case. And like Maura's case, Brianna's vehicle location complicates more than it clarifies. And it's even weirder. Like I said, it
could get weirder.
It's weird. But without the victim, it leaves everything open to interpretation.
So why hasn't Brianna's case received the same level of national attention?
I don't know for sure that it hasn't. It is a pretty famous case. Is it one that you had heard of or looked into before?
The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't bring any conclusions together in my brain.
I do think that there's a sad reality that when a young lady that had gone to West Point and was going to college, enrolled in a nursing program, goes missing, she receives more attention than a high school dropout who's couch surfing and
has a drug problem.
Maybe has a drug problem.
Yeah.
I think there's the reality of that. Both families have fought relentlessly for answers. Both Brianna's mom and dad have worked with private investigators. They've hosted events. They're actually very active within the true crime community. They go to CrimeCon. They answer questions. I mean, so, they have definitely worked their asses off to get her case out there in the spotlight. And they've done a damn good job with it.
So how did the investigation into Brianna's disappearance unfold?
Same thing. Initially, there was hesitation. A bolo wasn't issued. Law enforcement didn't process the car as a crime scene. The rural location, low population, and resource constraints in Vermont contributed to delays, just as they did in Maura's case. And days turned into weeks. The trail went cold. Some believe that the early missteps sealed the fate of the investigation. I'm one of them.
So this wasn't just a coincidence in timing and location. It was a pattern in institutional failure.
And as sad as it is, I think that we're getting better. The answer to your question is yes, but I think that we're getting better, but I think that I still think that it's a problem. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to go back to Danielle's case. It was right here locally. Mm-hmm. I don't see billboards with, I don't see all this shit out there trying to find her and figure out what happened to her. It's very similar. We just assumed they took off or just assumed nothing happened. And I don't know why we don't assume the worst until we know that that's not what happened. But so, I mean, Brianna really didn't do anything to make people believe that. I don't know where in the hell they ever come up with it, because, she literally left work that night. She'd only worked there for like 2 weeks or something. And because I'm just kind of throwing this in as it's kind of a preview of what's coming next. I don't have the information in front of me, but I have researched this case quite a lot, but a lot of this I'm just pulling from memory. So if I'm off on a few things, forgive me, but she'd only worked at the Black Lantern for like a couple of weeks. She was brand new there. Our first paycheck was like $37 or something. Tells you how many hours, she worked. But we're also talking about a teen that's couch surfing. So $37 is like a pile of freaking money. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember back in the day digging through couch cushions for 75 cents that I could put gas in my truck. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a pile of money. She left it behind. It was on the seat of her truck. And he had no reason to disappear voluntarily. There was no indication that, in my case, there was no indication that that was the case with her at all.
So is it possible that these cases could have the same perpetrator?
It's been theorized a lot, and it's not impossible, but I gotta say, when I was talking earlier about the likelihood of Israel Keys just happening on,
right?
And we can take his disgusting name out of it and just say the likelihood of a killer like that stumbling on somebody in a night, the likelihood of it happening twice within 5 weeks of each other is so tiny that I don't even think it can be taken seriously. I mean,
if it would be a masterful perpetrator.
If we're talking about two girls that were hitchhiking, in consistency and covering a lot of miles on the road or something, sure, yeah, We're talking about two girls that their cars were found wrecked on the side of the road. The likelihood that the same dude happened upon both of them 100 miles apart, pretty slim.
Pretty lucky for that dude.
Yeah.
So, what do we hope to uncover by covering Brianna's story next?
Well, the same in all of these. We want to tell her story, perspective, context, hopefully a little bit of clarity. And, I really went back and forth on the way to handle this because we don't do like series cases a lot. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how he felt about doing one right after another one. But because these cases are so freaking linked in online communities and stuff like that, I don't know how you can possibly talk about one and not talk about the other one, because
they both deserve it.
If you tell Maura's story, there's a group of people out there that's going to be like, well, what about Brianna? Uh-huh. And they were killed by the same person. And I think if you tell one, you have a responsibility to then tell the other, because whether they're linked in any kind of factual context, they're permanently linked in the true crime community, in the mind of the public. So, what we do know is that Maura Murray was more than a case file. She was more than a timeline of strange decisions and unanswered questions. Maura was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a young woman with dreams. She ran track at Whitman-Hanson High School in Massachusetts. Fast, disciplined, and fiercely competitive. She set records and earned awards, not just because of her talent, but because she worked harder than anyone else on the field. Her coach once said that she was the kind of athlete who'd run through a wall if you told her that it would make her faster.
And she wasn't just an athlete.
No, far from it. Maura was enrolled in the nursing program at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and before that, she completed a year at West Point. And we've talked about that. That is a hell of an achievement just to get in West Point. And she participated in ROTC. That's where she learned discipline, structure, but also where some early cracks started to show. Still, she had a sharp wit, a dry sense of humor, and a quiet loyalty that her friends and family remember vividly. Her sister Julie shared stories of Maura bringing levity to stressful moments, cracking a joke during a tense family road trip, or comforting a friend through a breakup with zero judgment. She was the type of person who remembered birthdays, who stayed up late helping classmates study, who didn't say much unless it mattered. Maura wanted to help people. That's what drew her into nursing. And despite all the speculation around her disappearance, it's that version of her, determined, intelligent, and quietly funny, that her family holds on to.
And her family never gave up.
They didn't. Her dad, Fred, became a relentless advocate. From 2004 to 2006, he filed FOIA requests for police logs. He pushed for media attention, and he demanded accountability. In 2005, he publicly confronted law enforcement and the media, asking why there were so many unanswered questions. Julie, her sister, has later picked up the mantle, created the TikTok, and all of the stuff that we've talked about her doing. And in part with the Murray's persistence, Maura's case was re-examined in 2021 with renewed searches conducted by the FBI and the New Hampshire State Police. And Maura's case contributed to broader reforms like VICAP updates and increased focus on adult missing person cases.
So even though she's still missing, Maura changed things.
Absolutely. Her case exposed how quickly adult missing person cases can be deprioritized. Just like we've talked about with No Bolo issued, the crash site not processed, all of the crap that, we've gone over. And we know that now everything suggests that she trusted someone enough to stop, get into the car, and that trust cost her everything.
What made Maura's story resonate with so many people?
I think because she was real, because her disappearance wasn't the end, it was the start of a movement. People saw the gaps in the system, the inconsistencies, the lack of urgency, and they said, not again. Her story reminds us that victims aren't just names and headlines. They are people with ambitions, with families who love them, with futures that were taken too soon. And when systems fail them, it's up to the rest of us to demand better.
What would you say defined Maura's spirit?
Resilience. She had been through things, difficulties at West Point, recent crash-related stress event, academic pressure, but she was still moving forward. She didn't give up. She made plans, she packed for a trip, she got behind the wheel, and then something happened. We may never know exactly what, but we can be damn sure she didn't deserve to vanish without a trace.
And how has her case reflected broader problems in how we handle disappearances?
It showed that urgency is too often rationed based on age or gender or race or even geography. Maura's case, along with others like Brianna Maitland's, highlight the patchwork nature of missing persons investigations. It's a wake-up call that our systems don't always serve the people who need them the most.
So this episode was about Maura, but it's not the end of her story. Her legacy leads us to Brianna Maitland's story. 2 young women, both gone, just 39 days apart. Both cases remain unsolved, and both demand answers.
So, over the past several episodes, we've peeled back the layers of mystery that's haunted New England and the true crime world for over 2 decades. The case of Maura Murray isn't just a cold file. It's a collision of mischances, unanswered questions, and systemic failures. But it's also the story of a young woman, a daughter, a sister, a friend who vanished while trying to take a breath, to escape, maybe just for the weekend. Let's remember where she was heading. Maura Murray packed her toiletries, she packed her MapQuest directions, she packed all this stuff. The evidence points to a planned trip and a temporary getaway. Because what happened after her car hit that snowbank off Route 112 isn't an act of withdrawal. It's a rupture. Her scent was picked up by dogs but lost just 100 yards away. Her keys, wallet, phone, backpack never recovered. Not one confirmed sighting followed. And in the chaos of that Monday night, there are no reliable reports of Maura leaving the scene on foot. All of it suggests what law enforcement has finally come to believe as well. Maura likely got into another vehicle, believing she was safe, but she wasn't. Whether it was someone she trusted, a friend, a love interest, or a local predator who saw an opportunity, the result is the same. Maura Murray was taken, and she never came home.
It's overwhelming. So many theories, but so little resolution. What keeps this case alive after all these years?
2 things. The people who loved her and the failures that failed her.
But her family didn't give up.
Not for a second. We've talked about all that they've done and what they continue to do. I mean, her disappearance has completely altered the course of their lives, and it's really just became their lives. Mm-hmm. And it probably will be forever, And
all of it started with a young woman just trying to catch her breath.
Yeah, it's important to remember Maura beyond the crash site and the missing persons posters and all of the stuff. It's important to remember who she was and, what she was working towards. And not just her career goals, but life goals. She wanted to build something for herself, step by step. That's who was lost. Not just a name or a face, but an entire future. Her family believes rightfully that Maura did not leave her life willingly, that she didn't walk into the woods, that she didn't become overwhelmed and disappear. They believe, as we do, at least me, where are you at?
I believe it too.
Believe that she was taken. And if we stop talking about her, then that truth gets buried with the silence.
So for the people listening, what can they do? How do you keep a case like this alive?
So it starts with remembering Maura as a person, not a mystery. Share her story. Talk about what went wrong. Call out the systemic failures that still plague missing persons investigations today. But more tangibly, visit our website, darkdialogue.com, where we track updates, investigative timelines, and community efforts. You can adopt Maura through our Adopt a Victim program and get involved. If you want to help us to continue producing episodes like this, expanding our research, you can contribute through Patreon or Ko-fi. And if you have a tip, insight, or even a critique, we want to hear it. Email us at info@darkdialogue.com. We take everything seriously, and yes, we really do read every message.
What connects Maura to Brianna Maitland, and why are these stories tied together?
Because both young women vanished from rural highways under eerily similar circumstances and very close to each other. Both investigations were completely botched from the start. And, I've already said it, but that's why our next episodes are going to take a hard look at Brianna Maitland's disappearance, because her story deserves the same depth, the same scrutiny, and the same humanity. Maura Murray was loved. She is missed. And what happened to her, whatever happened, matters. That's where we'll leave this chapter, but not the story, because this is Dark Dialogue, and we will always keep the dialogue alive.